Hey, what's up guys, it's your boy KCM What Ifs. Today we are gonna be reading The Turn of a Hero, or What If Naruto Left Jiraiya and Betrayed Konoha. So sit back, relax and enjoy. It was extremely hard for something to truly annoy Naruto at this point. Seriously, besides the stubbornness that his father had, there was nothing else. Things had just become that much in favor for him. All that was needed was to march straight into Konoha and kill everyone there. Well, that, and the issue with Kabuto. That annoying snake, or reincarnation of the most annoying snake, just wouldn't die. Not only that, but said annoyance also had the balls to have summoned several of the strongest shinobis in the history of the shinobi, if not the strongest besides the Rikudo Sennin. But that would be taken care of in due time as well. Once business was concluded here. And said business also included the biggest annoyance that Naruto had ever had to come across as of yet. And that was himself. Looking straight at his dark counterpart's eager face made Naruto even more annoyed. The bastard just wouldn't mind his own business. But another part of Naruto was mentally kicking himself for not having seen this outcome, having already figured out how exactly Dark Naruto had gotten free. His eagerness to completely annihilate Madara and the rest seemed to have blocked out his rational thoughts of thinking through something before he did it, another skill that Kurama had drilled into him during their training trip. The same thing had happened when he had killed that other squad leader, when he had resurrected his mother back at that Oto base when he had been in Konoha. And now I'm going to have to pay the price, thought Naruto with an internal sigh. What's this? Said Dark Naruto from on top of the Jubi's head, a mocking sad tone present within his voice. No, hello? No, how are you? Really, that's just hurtful. You, began Naruto as he looked at Dark Naruto, just what exactly do you plan to accomplish by being here? Dark Naruto chuckled as he took a sitting position on top of the Jubi's head, looking around the destroyed area within the gigantic crater. Well, I had planned to cause a bit of damage myself, but it seems that you got that part covered up, don't you? Dark Naruto clapped as he turned his attention to Naruto, a smirk on his face. I must say, I am proud of you. When I first came into existence, I never would have thought that you would ever be capable of doing something like this. Karma really is a bitch. Dark Naruto then focused his gaze towards Kushina, who was standing beside Naruto with a surprised look, bringing one of his hands upwards, giving said redhead a thumbs up. I must say that I quite like that new look of yours, Kushina-chan. Way better than that dress you first wore. Before Kushina could respond to his compliment, Dark Naruto then focused his attention on Mito. And you, well, you're also very hot as well, even though you're wearing that extremely elaborate kimono of yours, which is not meant to be used for a fight such as this. But then again, you're hot. Why, thank you for that, said Mito with obvious sarcasm present in her voice. That sure has made my day. Dark Naruto chuckled at that. Don't mention it. Finally he refocused on Naruto again, dismissing Madara for the moment. I'm sure that you must not like me interrupting your shining moment, but I doubt such a golden opportunity such as this would ever appear again to me on a silver platter. Naruto simply fed at that. You mean me using the Jubi's power? Bingo, said Dark Naruto with another clap. Really, if you already knew that you using the Jubi's power would cause me to become free, then why did you still do it? Wait, don't tell me. Dark Naruto wiped an imaginary tear from one of his eyes. You actually wanted for me to become free? Why, I must thank you. Don't flatter yourself, retorted Naruto. The thought simply escaped me because Because you were having too much fun, finished Dark Naruto with a smirk. Well, I can't say that I blame you. Fighting the likes of the Shodai Hokage is as unlikely as Orochimaru actually saying that he loves Konoha. Not to mention having a rematch with our dear daddy. And you? Dark Naruto looked at Madara for the first time. Uchiha Madara, well, I never thought that I would say this, but thank you. Madara, who still had his arms crossed, raised an eyebrow upon hearing that. For what? He asked. Dark Naruto simply pointed at him. Because if it weren't for you, I would never have been in the position that I currently am. And that is, of course, being better than any of you. Dark Naruto then stood up, another smirk forming on his face as he turned his attention to a rather calm-looking Naruto. And now it's you and me, I don't know why, but I have this terrible itch that just won't go away unless I kill you. Oh, said Naruto. And just what makes you think that you can kill me? Dark Naruto merely pointed below him, mainly to the bijou that he currently stood on. Why, with the jubi of course. I thought as much, thought Naruto as his wind armor appeared around him once more. The next moment, he was in front of his dark counterpart, a Rasengan in hand and heading straight towards Dark Naruto. His Rasengan was blocked by a similar Rasengan, except that it was pure black. Both Naruto and Dark Naruto were pushed back, each coming to a stop on opposite ends of the jubi's head. Naruto could only scowl briefly as he looked at Dark Naruto, who was also completely surrounded within wind armor, except that the wind was pure black as well. Well, I must say that I quite like the power that I now have, commenter Dark Naruto said as he brought his right hand upwards towards his eyes. It will be just enough to destroy this world. Naruto smirked at that while shaking his head. So that's what you're up to? I shouldn't really be surprised. You're just another idiot trying to cause massive destruction. Dark Naruto chuckled in return as he turned his focus to Naruto, lowering his hand. And what exactly do you call yourself? Naruto simply shrugged. I don't know, and I don't really care, but I'm not stupid enough to try to destroy the planet that we live on though. That would just be stupid. It would be like you trying to kill your own self. And what if that's what I'm trying to do? Countered Dark Naruto with narrowed eyes. My existence, just why exactly was I born? To just simply hide in the shadows while you take all the credit? This is just like with Tobi, thought Naruto as he remembered what Obito had told them. Tobi had been resentful at Obito for being, well, Obito. Tobi had just felt like a cheap imitation, add to the fact that Madara himself had preferred Obito. Well, to put it simply, it must have driven Tobi over the edge. I will kill you right here and now, stated Dark Naruto as he looked at his other self with anger present in his eyes. Naruto could only laugh out loud at the current situation. It was just simply too freaking hilarious to him. He never expected for the same thing to happen to him that had happened with Obito. Although he wouldn't make the same mistake as Obito had. I can say the same thing to you, replied Naruto. Once you're out of the picture, the jubi will be mine to control. Dark Naruto smirked here. The same could be said to you. As of right now, you don't have complete control of the jubi either thanks to me. Now that was true. Right now Naruto couldn't control the jubi at all, both himself and his other self having a hold on it for the moment. That won't last though. Thought Naruto as he was in front of Dark Naruto the next moment, trying to push him back with pure wind power, Dark Naruto doing the exact same thing. Dark Naruto laughed, almost sounding crazy as they both tried to push the other back. I've already told you this. You can't beat me. Naruto smirked in response. But you've forgotten something. It's true that I don't have the jubi right now, but I've got someone else, something that you don't. Dark Naruto's eyes widened in both anger and understanding as red chakra began to surround Naruto, giving the wind armor around him a crimson color to it. No! Screamed Dark Naruto as he was sent flying back to the crater below with a big impact. Naruto for his part merely jumped down off the jubi's head as said bijou disappeared in a big puff of smoke. You! Said Jubi from within Naruto's mind. You're too much of a risk for me to use you right now, simply stated Naruto as he pushed Jubi's consciousness further down into his subconscious. You better watch yourself, Uzumaki. Warned the jubi before its voice disappeared along with its entire presence before being replaced by an all too familiar one. Finally, said Kurama as his consciousness took the jubi's spot. It's about damn time that you finished with all the crap that's taking. Kurama stopped talking as he observed the situation at hand as Naruto landed on the ground. Never mind. How can he be out? Questioned Kushina as she, along with both Mito and Madara, watched everything that was happening. It's clearly obvious, responded Madara as he watched everything with a calm look, his arms still being crossed together. I'm guessing that this is a dark entity from within Naruto's subconscious, correct? Kushina simply nodded, putting aside the fact that Madara was their enemy for the moment. The Jubi is composed entirely of dark energy, continued Madara with his explanation, so this dark entity merely hitched a ride when Naruto released the Jubi's power. Combined with the fact that the Rinnegan is capable of creating new life with the yin-yang release as well as that the dark entity is composed entirely of just chakra, well, it's just like the formation of the other bijus that the Rikudo Sennin did years ago except that instead of creating the bijus, the dark entity simply created a body for himself. I see. Thought Kushina, understanding. You. Said Mito while looking at Madara, you didn't know that this was going to happen, did you? Madara didn't respond to that as he focused entirely on both Naruto and Dark Naruto who was beginning to get back up from within a small crater that he had created when he had impacted in the ground. This is exactly what happened with Obito, thought Madara as he remembered that particular incident. But something tells me that this was not the Shinigami's doing. Flashback, start. What is this? Madara could only look at the two unconscious individuals on the floor with both surprise and a small amount of anger. He had only asked for that Obito boy, not whoever this other Uchiha was. The Shinigami chuckled as he glanced at both Obito and the other unconscious being next to him. Exactly what you have asked me for except with some added bonus. Bonus? Repeated Madara with a raised eyebrow before shaking his head. Just who is this? He asked, pointing to the other passed-out boy next to Obito. That's Uchiha Obito, answered the Shinigami before doing a small shrug. Well, not entirely of course. What is that supposed to mean? Asked Madara with narrowed eyes. It's the combination of all of Uchiha Obito's dark emotions, elaborated the Shinigami while looking at the passed-out Obito. I'm not entirely sure if he actually felt it, but extremely potent and dark thoughts began to take root within his soul at the fact that he was going to die just because of some stupid war. And he blamed it all on the shinobi world. The Shinigami then pointed his staff to the boy next to Obito. That is him. Of course, it's imperfect. Obito died before the dark thoughts could take hold of him completely and thus, we have this. Although it seems that the process of them being separated has caused them to lose consciousness. Another being made his presence known. Ha ha ha, laughed the original White Zetsu as he stood beside Madara. Would you look at this? It's surprising all right. Madara could only sigh in slight annoyance at hearing White Zetsu. His espionage is top-notch, no doubt about that, thought Madara. But he's even worse than Hashirama was at some times. No, all the time. White Zetsu walked up to kneel in front of Obito's other self. Ugh. Would you look at this? He's missing half of his body just like me. White Zetsu grinned at this. I think that me and him are going to be good friends. Madara merely turned to look at the amused Shinigami with a questioning look. Seeing Madara's look, the Shinigami simply shrugged again. I told you already. It's imperfect. But why would you create something like this? Asked Madara. The Shinigami chuckled again. To my amusement as well as yours. What? Said Madara with another raised eyebrow. Like I've told you, these dark emotions feel extreme resentment towards the shinobi world. I'm sure that you must know how to put that to good use. Madara was quiet for a few moments before chuckling. I see. But then another question formed within Madara. You're the god of death, are you not? The Shinigami simply nodded. Then how come you actually formed life? Asked Madara. After all, the god of death is not supposed to create life but to simply take it, plain and simple. But here he was, doing the exact opposite. These emotions were in my realm, answered the Shinigami calmly. And when that happens, they are mine to do as I please with. No one else can interfere with that. Even to give it a life of its own? Questioned Madara. The Shinigami chuckled once more as he started to disappear. Yes. You've said it yourself. I'm the god of death. There are only a few things that I cannot do. I do hope that you put this into good use, Madara. With that, the Shinigami disappeared completely. Madara sighed before turning to look at both still unconscious individuals. What will you do with them? Asked White Zetsu with a small grin. Why, put them to good use, responded Madara, bringing one hand up to touch his face. It won't be long before I won't be able to move freely as I do now. Thanks to Hashirama's cells and the Rinnegan, I've been able to stay young as long as I have, but that is not going to last much longer. White Zetsu chuckled as Madara made his way out of the underground hideout. So you're going to go do it then? Madara merely nodded as he continued to walk. Yes. I doubt that we'll be able to find another Uzumaki with both the right age and capability of handling the Rinnegan. This will also prove to be a good challenge for the future Uzumaki that is said to be the one to change this cursed world. And these two? Asked White Zetsu as he glanced at both Obito and his other self. Give them new clothes as well as bandage up that clone of Obito's and make sure that they don't leave the hideout until I return, is that clear? White Zetsu simply nodded at Madara's back. This will certainly make the game more entertaining, thought Madara with a small smirk as he made his way out of the hideout and towards AIM. Flashback, end. It seems that the game has gotten even more entertaining though, thought Madara. Dark Naruto could only scowl as he looked at Naruto. I won't be defeated by you. Naruto for his part could only chuckle in amusement as he looked at his dark self. You're nothing but bitter resentment, aren't you? Dark Naruto scowled again as he charged at the amused Naruto, disappearing out of sight and reappearing in front of Naruto with his fist brought forward, only for it to be blocked by Naruto's. This will be the end of you, stated Naruto before they both disappeared, one in a black flash and the other in a red one. They're fast, thought Kushina as she watched the black and red blurs disappear and reappear again and again. Mito simply watched with an impassive look. It seems that I've forgotten for the moment, thought Madara with a small smirk, but I guess that it works in my favor in the end. I now get to watch this with no annoying interruptions. Water style, Suijin Hiki. Tsunade could only scowl in anger as she clashed with the wall of water, courtesy of her granduncle. I forgot how strong he is, thought Tsunade as she landed a few feet away from Tobirama, completely drenched in water but not really caring about that particular fact at the moment. You sure have grown, Tsunade, said Tobirama calmly. But what are you doing here? This is the land of iron where the Kage meeting was taking place before all of this happened, answered Tsunade. I'm sure that I don't need to tell you anything besides that. Tobirama's eyes widened partially upon hearing that. I see. So you became Hokage then? Enough of this, interrupted Kabuto from behind Tobirama. Now Night Aim, kill her. Tsunade took a step back as Tobirama charged at her. Of course he doesn't have to worry too much about my punches since he can't die right now, thought Tsunade as she jumped upward just before Tobirama reached her. Now she was hoping more than ever that she knew a Fuinjutsu technique that could stop this just like her grandmother did. But I guess that I'll have to do with what I've got for now, she thought as she brought one of her legs upwards. Tsutenkaku. Tobirama could only jump backwards at the last second, lest he become a pile of ash as Tsunade brought her falling axe kick on the ground, creating a big crater as a result. She has mastered her chakra extremely well, thought Tobirama as he landed. Interesting, thought Utakata from within his bubble as he watched all of this. We gotta help her. Utakata turned to look at a kneeling Yagura within another bubble beside him. And why should we? Asked Utakata with a raised eyebrow. She's the enemy, isn't she? Yagura shook his head. She's not our most pressing enemy right now. That belongs to that Kabuto person down there, he said, looking straight at Kabuto, who was watching Tsunade dodge Tobirama strikes from a kunai, lest she be stabbed. It's what Naruto would want us to do, stated Yagura. Utakata merely sighed at that. Oi, Rokubi, do you feel like dash? Yes, answered the Bijou without any hesitation. Utakata could only sigh again before turning to look at Yagura. Can you still dash? Yes, answered Yagura, making one of Utakata's eyebrows twitch in annoyance. Why couldn't anyone let him finish his questions, damn it? Fine then, said Utakata in irritation as bubbles began to surround him. Yagura smirked lightly before he too started to transform into his own Bijou. Water style, Swishoha. Tsunade could only look at the big spiraling vortex of water that was coming straight at her with narrowed eyes. Now, how to dodge this? She didn't have to dwell on it too much as a giant three-tailed turtle landed right in front of her, blocking the technique. You again, said Tobirama calmly in midair, having to do this to dodge the Bijou lest he be squatted, Kabuto right behind him as well. More annoyances, thought Kabuto with narrowed eyes. Sansen. What, thought Kabuto as he and Tobirama were covered in a dense gas of acid the next moment, courtesy of a transformed Utakata who stood beside the transformed Yagura. The Sanbai and the Rokubi, thought Tsunade from behind with wide eyes. Now this was unexpected. As the gas dispersed, one disfigured Tobirama impacted on the ground with a loud thud, parts of his body disintegrated as a result of coming into contact with the acid gas. Kabuto for his part simply landed on the ground behind the lying Tobirama, unharmed. How, thought Tsunade as she appeared in front of both the Sanbai and the Rokubi. She then noticed what appeared to be the skin of Kabuto landing softly in front of said individual. I see, thought Tsunade. The substitution jutsu that Orochimaru created. They're going to be a problem, thought Kabuto as he looked at the two Bijou behind Tsunade. He then brought his hands together, intent on summoning more dead shinobi. Tsunade's eyes widened at this, but before she could act, someone beat her to it. Feeling a great amount of pressure behind her, she turned her head back to see both the Sanbai and the Rokubi preparing a combined tailed beast ball. I see, thought Tsunade with a smirk as she turned her head forward to look at Kabuto. Dodge this, you bastard. By Jadama. Kabuto's eyes could only widen as he looked at the incoming tailed beast ball. Tobirama for his part, well, he just laid there. I will kill you. Keep telling yourself that. Those were the shouts that were heard as both Naruto and Dark Naruto continued to clash with each other, sword against kunai, as they each appeared one moment and were gone the next, only for them to appear in another spot the next and so on. This is endless, exclaimed Kushina with wide eyes as she watched all of this. Mito for her part had her attention elsewhere to where an explosion had just taken place, and thanks to her sensing abilities, she could tell what was happening. It seems that Kabuto is on the defensive now, thought Mito with a small smirk before focusing on the fight here. It was a big risk to not go over there herself to finish things off, but her curiosity was just too big for her to ignore about seeing how things would go here. Besides, with the way things were looking over there, it was more than likely that Kabuto would lose. Both Narutos suddenly stopped a few feet away from the other, both panting a bit as well. This really does look like a stalemate, thought Naruto, his wind armor still active as he looked at his other self. Not if you use my chakra, responded Kurama. I don't want to just rely on your chakra, Kurama, responded Naruto. Kurama merely humphed at that but didn't reply. Dark Naruto was currently scowling at the moment. If only he hadn't been surprised by Naruto using Kurama's chakra, he would still have the upper hand. But now the Jubi was completely back inside Naruto where he could no longer do something about it. Damn you, Kyubi, thought Dark Naruto in anger. In the past, said Bijou would have sided with him. But it seemed that that was no longer the case. Both Narutos were then inhaling, preparing to use ninjutsu now. Fire style, Genkyu. Seeing the move, Madara was immediately on the move, knowing what was going to happen. Seeing this, both Mito and Kushina decided to follow Madara's example. Both Naruto's exhaled a meteor-sized fireball, both attacks clashing with each other. The end result was a big-ass explosion, creating another big crater within the already existing gigantic one. "Just what's going over there?" screamed Suigetsu with wide eyes as he watched the gigantic explosion that was taking place. "The other extremely dark chakra has disappeared," said Karen, both of her hands together in the ram seal. "Well, no shit," thought Mikoto with a slight roll of her eyes as she, along with the rest, had watched the Jubi disappear. "But now another dark chakra has appeared, almost identical to that of that blonde guy, Naruto," continued Karen. Now this caught Mikoto's attention, as well as Sasuke's. "What do you mean by that?" questioned Sasuke as he glanced at the glasses-wearing redhead. Karen could only shake her head. "I don't get it myself, but they're currently fighting each other, the two having been responsible for those attacks. Aren't you going to join?" Karen jumped in the air with an beep, as both black and white Zetsu rose from the ground beside Mikoto, the two having joined together again. "This guy really is creepy," thought Suigetsu with a twitching eyebrow. Sasuke simply looked at his mother. Mikoto for her part glanced at Zetsu for a moment before turning her attention back to the already disappearing cloud of dust. "What's happening?" she simply asked. White Zetsu chuckled. "Our pal Kabuto was up to his old tricks, that's what. He revived all the previous Hokages along with both Uchiha Izuna and Uchiha Madara. That caused a massive wave of shock to hit the group, including both Mikoto and Sasuke." "And Naruto?" asked Mikoto, narrowing her eyes. "He's already defeated all of them besides Madara and the Nidaime," answered Black Zetsu. Mikoto smirked lightly at hearing that, as well as a wave of arousal to hit her at knowing that Naruto was that strong. Sasuke's hands clenched into fists at hearing this piece of information. Naruto. He was jealous, plain and simple. He would admit to that. "Of course, if you want to know what's currently happening now, then I suggest that you go," said Black Zetsu as he and White Zetsu started to sink into the ground. "We're going," said Mikoto after Zetsu had completely disappeared. Karen waved her hands in protest at hearing this. "But you just said that we should stay back." Mikoto merely glanced back at the redhead with an unreadable expression on her face that still managed to scare Karen. That was when that thing from before was present there. But now that it isn't, there's nothing to worry about. With that, Mikoto began to run forward towards where the battle was taking place, both Sasuke and Suigetsu immediately following her lead. Seeing no other alternative, Karen began to follow them. Both Narutos could only chuckle as they both stood in the center of their respective attacks after they had disappeared. "Not bad for a fake," commented Dark Naruto as he looked at Naruto. "I could say the same to you," replied Naruto. "It's obvious that we're evenly matched," stated Dark Naruto as he took a single step forward. "How do you propose that we settle this?" Naruto could only stare at his dark counterpart in silence for a moment. "I don't even know why we're even fighting in the first place," said Naruto before stopping himself. "Wait, yes I do. It's because you want to kill me." Dark Naruto simply tilted his head. "I'll admit it, I don't dislike you as much as I first did when I was first born within you. But I still don't like you. Even when we did work together in the past, that was only to accomplish my own end. But now, there is no need for that. You're my only true obstacle from teaching this pathetic world how truly worthless it is." Naruto could only chuckle. "Seriously, you're just like another copy of Tobi. Except that instead of using a genjutsu to control the world, you actually want to destroy all of it, including yourself. Answer me this then: what exactly do you plan on doing once you have taken your revenge on Konoha for what they did to us?" Naruto shrugged. "Honestly? I have no clue. But when the time comes, when I'm watching that village burn to the ground, I'm sure that it'll come to me. Naruto then took a step forward as well. I will tell you this though, I would actually like to keep living in this world when it is all said and done. Dark Naruto chuckled. Really? Won't you miss all of this? All of this fighting? All the action? I know that you will. Because I would too. Which is why it's meaningless to keep living in boredom for the rest of your life. You may be right about that, replied Naruto. But like I said, I'll come to it when the time comes. For now, removing all obstacles from achieving my goal is where my complete focus lies. After all, if I wasn't completely focused on what I'm doing now, I would be doomed to failure from the start and wouldn't even have to worry about what the future would be. Dark Naruto didn't respond to that. Instead, he got ready to charge at Naruto again. Seeing this, Naruto also got ready. If you keep doing this, it will never end until you're both passed out. And considering your stamina, who knows how long it would take for that to happen. Then what exactly do you propose? Asked Naruto while focusing on Dark Naruto at the same time. Do something that he would never expect, stated Kurama with a small smirk. Naruto was about to ask what he meant, before it hit him as well. With that thought, Naruto was immediately on the move, heading straight towards Dark Naruto at great speed. Dark Naruto for his part smirked before doing the same thing. It's useless, screamed Dark Naruto as they were both a few inches apart from the other, each having a Rasengan in hand. Dark Naruto brought his own Dark Rasengan forward, expecting for Naruto to do the same. So imagine his surprise that instead of that happening, Naruto didn't even try to block or dodge Dark Naruto's attack. What? Thought Dark Naruto in shock as his Dark Rasengan impacted with Naruto's unprotected form, his wind armor also having been deactivated at the last second. Kurama, now, screamed Naruto within his mind as he was pushed back in great force thanks to the attack from Dark Naruto. Screamed Naruto as he came to a stop a good distance away, landing on his back. What's going on here? Wondered Dark Naruto as he cautiously walked up towards Naruto's downed form, his own wind armor deactivating for the moment. He came to a stop in front of Naruto's unmoving form, aware that this might be a trap. After a while, nothing happened. Seeing this, Dark Naruto relaxed just for a bit. And it caused him a lot. Turning his head down, he looked with anger as tendrils of wood shot out of the ground and wrapped tightly around him. I knew it was a trick, screamed Dark Naruto within his mind as he intended to destroy the wood. But he wasn't fast enough as Naruto was in front of him before he could do anything, his own Rasengan in hand. Rasengan. It was Dark Naruto's turn to grunt in pain as he flew back from the attack, landing on his own back. He wasn't able to try to get up as Naruto was upon him the next moment again, wind armor activated as he brought his sword down upon Dark Naruto, stabbing said dark entity in the gut. You! Said Dark Naruto while blood was coming out of his mouth. Fast regenerative powers, said Naruto with a smirk. One of the perks of being a Jinchuriki. Fucking Kyubi, screamed Dark Naruto in anger. Kurama snorted from within Naruto's mind. I miss you too, dumbass. He said, not that Dark Naruto could hear what he had just said. You no longer have this power, stated Naruto as he intended to kill Dark Naruto. Placing his left foot on Dark Naruto's stomach, he retracted his sword from Dark Naruto's gut, making Dark Naruto grunt in pain again. Naruto then brought his sword upward, intent on slicing Dark Naruto's head off. This is the end for you, said Naruto with no remorse present in his voice. Fuck you, was Dark Naruto's response. Naruto then brought his sword down, but at the last moment, black energy began to ooze out of Dark Naruto's body, causing Naruto to jump back. What is this? Thought Naruto as he landed. It's the Jubi's chakra, answered Kurama with narrowed eyes. Well, a small portion, but it's still lethal. Naruto's hands clenched at that fact. Dark Naruto laughed before he disappeared in a dark flash, leaving no trace that he was ever there besides the small puddle of blood. "Son of a bitch," screamed Naruto in anger. "It's over, is it?" Naruto looked behind him to see Madara calmly walking towards him. Naruto growled at him. "I'm not in the mood to deal with you right now." Madara stopped a few feet away from him. "Is that so? Well, I really don't feel like fighting you any longer either. I've seen what I have to see." Naruto raised an eyebrow at him. "You know, all of this talking in mystery is kind of getting old by now. Just say what you want to say and be done with it already." Madara chuckled. "Well, I don't have all the answers either, if that's what you mean." Naruto could only stare at Madara blankly before looking up at the cloudy sky. "Who has all the answers then?" he shouted. Madara shrugged and was about to answer before he held his head, pain starting to form within it. "What is this?" he thought to himself. "I already broke free from Kabuto's control. It must be the Edo Tensei," thought Naruto as he watched Madara hold his head and readied himself. Kurama narrowed his eyes. "That's something that's been bugging me. For a while now, it seemed that Madara was in complete control of himself. But something tells me that that's no longer the case now. Kabuto must have figured out something," thought Naruto as a coffin appeared behind Madara. "Maybe," muttered Kurama, but felt that there was something else to it. Naruto merely watched as Madara was engulfed within the coffin. The opening of the coffin closed before disappearing. Naruto turned to look towards the building where the Kage meeting had taken place, mainly the part where the Jubi had destroyed it. "I need to find Kabuto then." Tsunade growled as she looked around the destroyed area, seeing no trace of either Kabuto or her granduncle. "Where did that bastard go?" she thought to herself. Looking behind her, she saw that neither Yagura or Utakata were there either, both having left already as well. "The only thing that I can do now is to find Kakashi and retreat for now," thought Tsunade as she made her way towards the building, or what was left of it. She could deal with her grandmother, Kabuto, and anybody else later. But not right now. She needed to be more prepared. Kabuto was currently on the run, hopping from a snowy tree branch to the next. After having hidden himself within a large summoning snake at the last moment before the attack from the tailed beasts had reached him, he immediately retreated. He was in no condition to fight at the moment. He had thought that the combined force of Madara and his brother alongside the rest of the Hokages would have been more than enough to take care of Naruto, but it seemed that he had been greatly mistaken. Not only that, but he lost 4 of his best revived shinobi within his arsenal. Thankfully he still had Madara. That drew a big question from Kabuto though. Just how in the hell had he managed to get Madara back in control? Kabuto honestly didn't know the answer to that question. One part of him was just saying that it didn't matter. Just to be glad that it had happened, but his rational and scientific mind was screaming to know how. Something told him that it had to do with the Fuinjutsu that he had used to bring them all back in the first place. But even with Madara back in his hands, Kabuto knew that it still wouldn't be enough to deal with Naruto at this point. He needed to figure out something else. He was so engrossed in his thoughts that he almost didn't notice the kunai that was thrown to his head. Kabuto merely tilted his head to the side to dodge the kunai before stopping his branch hopping. Looking to his right, he saw Dark Naruto leaning on a tree for support, holding his stomach lest he bleed to death. Kabuto narrowed his eyes on him. "You." Dark Naruto scowled at him. "No time for questions right now. Just get me some medical treatment, and I swear to you that you'll get everything that you want." "Does he think that I'm a fool?" thought Kabuto before mentally smirking. "Although, I won't have a better opportunity than this. Not to mention the fact that I will most certainly die if I do this alone. There's always a way to turn things to your advantage." Kabuto readjusted his glasses. "Alright then. Come with me," said Kabuto with a small grin. It took all of Dark Naruto's willpower to not kill the bastard in front of him. So they're gone then, said Mito as she walked beside Naruto along with Kushina, stopping in front of the entrance of the building. Naruto could only nod. Yeah. It seems that our work here is done for now. What are we going to do now? Asked Kushina as she looked around. We need to regroup, answered Naruto while looking up at the sky again. This was only the beginning of things. The real war starts here now. All three Uzumakis looked behind them to see Mikoto, Sasuke, and the rest running straight towards them at a great speed. It seems that they succeeded then, stated Mito with a small smile. I was planning on using that scroll to ruin Danzo completely, but with how things turned out, it's pointless now, thought Naruto. Don't dismiss it just yet, brat. There might be something else within it that could turn out to be useful. You never know, advised Kurama with a small chuckle. You're right, said Naruto. It seems that things have ended here, said Mikoto as she stopped in front of them, the rest behind her. Naruto simply nodded as he faced the entrance of the building, missing the look that Mikoto was giving him. But Kushina didn't. And neither did Sasuke. Let's go. We have to get everyone else before leaving here, stated Naruto as he and the rest walked into what was left of the building. Yes, thought Naruto, this is but the beginning. In Konoha, something else was currently taking place as well. Shikaku could only sigh in slight frustration at what the Yamanaka in front of him was telling him. So you're telling me that it's impossible to look into Hayashi's brain to see his memories? Asked Shikaku while holding his forehead. He, along with Ibiki and Enko and several Umbu members along with a random Yamanaka, was currently within a hospital room with only selected individuals being able to get access into the room. And in the center of the room lay one Hyuga Hayashi on an operating table. Yamanaka simply shook his head. It's not that it's impossible, just that Inoichi-sama was the only one that could do it the most efficiently out of any of us from the clan. I can try, but I can't guarantee what will happen. We need to take the risk, said Ibiki from his spot next to one of the walls. Why are you two so sure that Naruto wasn't the one that killed him for the hell of it? Asked Kat, aka Yugao, with her arms crossed under her breasts. Because risking coming into the village just to kill Hayashi seems far-fetched, answered Shikaku. Or that it's just part of something bigger, added Ibiki. I see, muttered Yugao, not saying anything else. Enko, who was leaning on one of the walls opposite of Ibiki, merely stayed silent, watching everything unfold in front of her. Do it, said Shikaku to the Yamanaka clan members. Said Yamanaka simply nodded as he placed one of his hands on Hayashi's head, concentrating. Tense silence was what followed afterwards. A few minutes later, the Yamanaka member was suddenly on the floor, screaming in pain. Every other person in the room was on guard as they watched the Yamanaka member continue to scream in pain on the floor. What is this? Said Ibiki with wide eyes. Shikaku turned his attention to Hayashi's corpse, only to see that the insides of Hayashi's head were all coming out from both nose, nostrils, mouth, and both ears. Sabotage, thought Shikaku with narrowed eyes. No one noticed the smirk that was currently present on Enko's face as she watched all of this. Tsunade jumped from tree branch to branch with one injured Hatake Kakashi on her back. After finding him within a collapsed room beneath a bunch of debris from said room, she had taken off. As much as she wanted to just go and find her grandmother, she knew that as of right now she was in no position to do something like that. When she finally would confront her grandmother for the final time, it would be on her own terms, not her grandmother's. What's wrong with you? Said Tsunade with a sigh as she continued to jump tree branch after tree branch. Getting yourself injured like this of all times when I need you the most. Kakashi simply chuckled without any humor. I'm sorry about this, but I was in way over my head it would seem. Tsunade could only take a glance at the jonin on her back. What's that supposed to mean? She asked him. I guess it's better if you knew now, replied Kakashi before sighing. I don't know how else to put this, but it seems that my old teammate is still alive. Tsunade raised an eyebrow as she stopped on a snowy tree branch, placing Kakashi down to lay him next to the tree trunk. "What do you mean?" asked a curious Tsunade as she kneeled in front of him. "Which one of your teammates?" "Uchiha Obito," answered Kakashi in a whisper. But Tsunade still heard him, causing her eyes to widen in shock. She of course had heard what had happened that day in that mission of the Kanabi Bridge during the Third Shinobi War. It had been Kakashi's first mission as a Jonin, also a test for said shinobi to see if he could truly handle the responsibility of that rank. Of course, even with how things ended, Minato had decided that Kakashi had seen and had learned what it meant to be a true shinobi, or what he thought was what it meant to be a true shinobi at least. That had also been the day when Kakashi had come out in possession of the Sharingan, having earned one of his nicknames as a result. That had also been the day that a sad event had taken place, which was when Uchiha Obito had been reported to have perished during the mission. But here was Kakashi telling her otherwise. "How can this be possible?" said Tsunade, her eyes still wide in shock. Kakashi could only shake his head. "I don't know, but he's the one that defeated me and would have killed me if the room hadn't collapsed. Although I think that he still could have killed me even with the room collapsing," finished Kakashi within his mind. Could he be the one that appeared that time during the attack in Konoha, wondered Tsunade, thinking of the Uchiha that had appeared out of nowhere when she had been fighting her grandmother. "This is troubling," muttered Tsunade. Kakashi could only agree with her and was about to respond, and a vortex appeared right in between him and Tsunade. "What's this?" asked Tsunade in curiosity. Knowing what it was, Kakashi screamed, "Tsunade-sama, move!" Following the warning, Tsunade jumped out of the way just in time to dodge a fist that appeared from within the vortex. As she landed on a nearby tree branch, Tsunade turned her attention to where Kakashi still was sitting in front of the tree bark, only to see the same Uchiha that she had just been thinking of standing where the vortex had been a few moments before. So it was him, thought Tsunade with an internal frown. "You didn't really think that I was going to let you get away, did you?" said Obito to Kakashi without turning around to face said shinobi. Kakashi could only chuckle in response without any humor yet again. "No, I really didn't think so." Obito turned his head back to glance at who was once his comrade. "So, you're not that stupid then." "So you really are Obito then," said Tsunade, catching Uchiha's attention. Obito turned his head forward again to focus on Tsunade, ignoring Kakashi for the moment. "And how do you know that?" he asked her with humor in his voice, already knowing the answer to the question. "Kakashi here has informed me," responded Tsunade. "Oh," said Obito, turning to look at Kakashi again. "So you believe me now, do you?" Kakashi didn't respond to that. Obito turned to Tsunade after a few moments. "Yeah, that's me. I'm Uchiha Obito." Obito then shrugged. "But of course, it makes no difference to me if you believe me or not at this point. If Kakashi here thinks that you are Obito, then it must be true," retorted Tsunade. Obito chuckled at that. "Right." He then took his time to give Tsunade a once-over, making him nod in approval. "I must say that you haven't aged a day, Tsunade. I know it's because of that genjutsu of yours, but still, nice." Tsunade didn't respond to that. "So you're on my grandmother's side, are you?" she asked him, ignoring his comment about her looks. "I wouldn't say her side," replied Obito with a small chuckle. "But if you're asking if we're both on the same side, then, yes we are." "So you know about what happened with the Uchiha clan then," stated Tsunade as she brought her fists together. Obito shook his head in amusement at that. "And here I thought that you knew better than that," said Obito before looking her in the eyes. "I honestly don't give a crap's ass about what happened to the Uchiha clan. That's Mikoto, not me," he thought before continuing. "Why I'm doing all of this is for an entirely different reason that even if I did tell you what it is, it wouldn't make a difference at this point." "No, it wouldn't," agreed Tsunade, "but you must obviously have valuable information about everything that is currently happening. Capturing you here right now would be a wasted opportunity." I suppose that is true, said Obito with another chuckle. Although I'm in a bad position, thought Obito. If Mito knew that I killed her granddaughter, I don't know what she would do in response. The next moment Tsunade was in midair, her right leg raised upward, intending on smashing Obito into pieces. Well, maybe not that far since she needed him alive, but whatever came close to that. Her foot then contacted what she thought was Obito as she heard a faint crack, making her smirk lightly. Oh my, you actually cracked it. Her eyes widened for a moment before looking down to see the last thing that was expected, and that was an unharmed-looking Obito. But not only was he unharmed, but he was also surrounded. Well, she didn't know how to describe it. It appeared to be some sort of orange ribcage. That was the best description that she could give. Her strength is impressive, thought Obito, noticing the crack on his basic Susanoo form. I need to be careful of it. Tsunade jumped upwards again as a bony hand appeared where she had just been the next moment. This must be the Susanoo jutsu that I heard of, thought Tsunade as she observed Obito with a calculating look. Raikiri. Oh. Obito raised an eyebrow as he looked behind him to see Kakashi coming at him again with his original jutsu. So he can still move, thought Obito. I've got to make it, thought Kakashi within his mind. I thought that we already established that this wouldn't work on me, commented Obito with a chuckle as his Susanoo ribcage that was around him disappeared as Kakashi phased right through him again. I didn't make it, thought Kakashi in irritation before collapsing down on the ground, holding his stomach in pain. I'm still too injured from before, thought Kakashi in pain. Challenging me when you're that injured, said Obito with a shake of his head as he walked up to Kakashi. I'm not that brat that you knew me as, Kakashi. I suppose not, replied Kakashi with sorrow as Obito stopped right in front of him. I'll be taking my eye back now, stated Obito. Don't forget about me, exclaimed Tsunade as she appeared behind Obito. I've had it with her, thought Obito as Tsunade's fist phased right through him. What sort of jutsu is this, thought Tsunade in shock. This is none of your business, stated Obito as a chain appeared around Tsunade, wrapping around said blonde senju tightly. Do you really think that these will hold me, said Tsunade as she tried to break through them, only to find that she couldn't, shocking her. These chains prevent you from using chakra, stated Obito with a chuckle, meaning that your inhuman strength is not going to work right now. Tsunade could only scowl at this. You. Like I said, this is none of your business, stated Obito as he walked up to her. Kakashi is one of my shinobi, so this is my business, retorted Tsunade with another scowl. Still stubborn, are you? Said Obito with a grin as he stood in front of her. I wonder how long that's going to last. I won't let any of you soil my grandfather's dream, stated Tsunade with anger. I'm afraid that you're way too late to be saying something like that, replied Obito before wrapping some parts of the chain around both of his hands. But I'll leave it to you to decide what you want to do, said Obito, flinging her down to the ground below, the chain still wrapped firmly around her. Seeing her go down, Obito turned his attention to the still downed Kakashi. So this is the end, said Obito as he stood in front of said injured shinobi. Kakashi simply closed his eyes, knowing that there was nothing he could do about this situation with the way that he currently was. You're not going to tell me about Rin, are you? Asked Obito, but said it more like a statement. Kakashi didn't reply. Obito simply chuckled before forming an all-familiar jutsu, shocking Kakashi. That's my dash, he began, only to be interrupted. Yes, said Obito as a Raikiri formed in his right hand. To be killed by your own jutsu, it must be a bitch. Kakashi merely closed his eyes again. Seeing this, Obito brought his right hand forward. Down below on the snowy ground, Tsunade struggled with the chain around her, only for it to disappear a moment later. Looking around as she stood up, Tsunade could only frown. The fact that the chain disappeared meant that it was no longer needed to keep her at bay, meaning. Frowning more, she pushed chakra to her feet as she jumped upwards to where she had fallen from. Landing, she looked around for any signs of Kakashi or Obito. But she only discovered a small puddle of blood on the ground. Kakashi, thought Tsunade worriedly. Looking around once more, Tsunade brought one of her fists to one of the nearby trees, breaking it in half. Damn it! Gaara could only look back at the nearly completely destroyed building one more time, not believing everything that had just happened. "We need to get going," said Inoki as he floated next to the redhead. A solemn-looking Temari was standing a bit to the front of the two Kages. After the room had collapsed on them, Gaara had grabbed the unconscious Temari and had looked for Kankuro's body, only to not be able to find it anywhere. They had not been able to do a thorough search because of the urgency of the current situation, so they had decided to leave Kankuro's body behind. "There will be time for you to get revenge," continued Inoki as he glanced at the redhead. "But right now it's not the time. We need to make a distance between us and this place before Uzumaki or any one of them that are following him decides to come and follow us. And we're not in any position to fight any of them right now." Gaara didn't respond as he turned his back on the building and continued to walk. "I'm sorry, Gaara," muttered Temari while looking down. Gaara didn't reply. "This will be interesting to observe," thought Inoki as he floated behind the two Suna shinobi. Within the destroyed building, another group of individuals was having their own conversation. "Whoa!" exclaimed Fu as she raised one of her fists in the air. "We did it!" Mito could only glance in amusement at the young Jinchuriki, mentally shaking her head at the fact that said Jinchuriki could actually be excited about all that had happened. Well, it wasn't that she didn't enjoy things either. Getting to defeat and watch how Naruto took out Hiruzen's soul was a big plus. Add to what Hashirama had told her. It made her feel better and to have no regrets about things now. Seven has the right mindset, yo, said B with a wave of his hands. Darui chuckled at that while C simply shook his head at B's antics. And he just stood there. Yujito simply huffed as she crossed her arms under her chest. "Well then," began Mikoto as she looked around what was once the first room that one entered when entering through the main entrance. "Now that the other nations know that we are serious, our next step is to prepare ourselves for what is to come." "Well, that Tsuchikage's change of sides is an unpleasant surprise," commented Mei as she stood next to a giant debris of what could have been once part of a wall, or the ceiling, or the floor. "No, it's a pleasant surprise," thought Mito but didn't comment on it out loud. "Kumo's army is ready," said Mikoto before looking at Mei. "Is yours?" Mei glanced at Ao who shook his head. "We still need a few more preparations for it to be completed," replied Ao. Chojuro merely stood next to him, holding his head down in what appeared to be embarrassment. "We're only going to have a few hours, perhaps a day at the most," said Mito as she glanced outside through the open doorway to see the night sky. "We don't know when they'll be ready or attack. We need to be ready first and perhaps even strike first to have the element of surprise if we're lucky." Mikoto nodded at that. "You're right, although they have the numbers on their side." Mito waved her hands in dismissal at that. "That means nothing for now. If we get the upper hand, them outnumbering us won't count for anything. Besides," Mito's face gained a smirk, "I'm going to get aim on our side now." Now that got everyone's attention. "What do you mean by that?" asked Yagura with a raised eyebrow. "AIM is currently in a mess," began Mito. "They'll take anyone right now to lead them out of this before they're conquered by a nearby nation." "Like IWA," muttered Mikoto with a sigh. No doubt that Inoki would not follow through with their agreement anymore, although Mikoto doubted that he ever really meant to follow through with it in the first place. Kushina turned them out for a moment to glance at Naruto, who was sitting on top of a large debris that resembled the one that Mei stood next to, his back facing towards them. And like the other one, it could have been part of anything. "I wonder what happened," thought Kushina as she looked at her son's back. For his part, Naruto was currently in deep thought, thinking about everything that he had learned up to this point. "It's meaningless to be thinking about something like this," stated Kurama with a sigh. No, it isn't, replied Naruto. There's something important out there, something about me that I don't know yet. And I'm tired of not knowing about it. So, said Kurama with a raised eyebrow. Why do you care about something like this? You yourself have said that you don't care about what people think about you. This is different, retorted Naruto. This is way different, and I'm sure that you know it is. Of course I know, thought Kurama with another sigh. And? What do you expect to do about this? Ask the being that must have some answers, if not all, answered Naruto before standing up. His mind was made up. After the encounter that he had just had with Madara, he was through the mystery game that was currently being played on him. He had been getting more and more annoyed as time progressed, and now, he had reached his boiling point on this matter. And what about the preparations for the war? Asked Kurama. The rest can handle that, answered Naruto, turning to face the others. So it's settled then, said Mito as she looked at all the individuals around her. I, along with Fuka, Rashi, and Han, will head to AIM and re-establish order there as well as get the village on our side. In the meantime, I'll head to Kumo with Sasuchan and his group, as well as the Raikage and his group, said Mikoto with a small grin. Sasuke's eyebrows twitched violently at hearing his mother say his nickname in front of everyone. In private it was one thing, but in public it was an entire different matter. But he just bit his tongue to bite back a remark. Although the laughing from both Karen and Suigetsu from behind him made it extremely difficult. Mito nodded in agreement at that, placing Sasuke's nickname to the side for the moment. Good. Then Naruto will dash. I have something else to take care of, interrupted Naruto as he appeared beside Kushina. Mito raised an eyebrow at him. And what is that exactly? She asked him. Naruto shook his head. It's personal. The point is that I'll be occupied for the moment. Mito narrowed her eyes slightly at that, an action that was mirrored by both Kushina and Mikoto. There's something going on here, thought Sasuke as he glanced at his mother and then at Naruto. Dobe, are you sleeping with my mother? If the answer was yes, Sasuke didn't know what to do about it. What could he be doing, wondered Kushina to herself. Naruto then proceeded to walk out of the building, only to be stopped by Fu, who ran up to catch him. Can I come with you? She asked as she stopped right behind him. Kushina was about to say something before Mito placed her hand on her fellow redhead's shoulder, making Kushina look at her. Mito simply shook her head as if to say, just let it go. Kushina could only sigh before doing what Mito said. Naruto glanced behind Fu before nodding. If you wish, he said before continuing to walk out, Fu right behind him. She has deep feelings for him, all right, thought Mito with a small smile on her face. I suppose that leaves me to go to Kiri then, said Mei as she looked at both Yagura and Yudakata. I take it you two will be going with me? Yagura nodded. Yes, we will, he answered before looking at Yudakata, who simply sighed before nodding as well. Hataru was in Kiri for the moment as well after all. I guess I'll be joining you then, said Kushina in a soft tone before looking at Naruto's retreating form. Good luck to us then, said Mito. Everyone else nodded besides Kushina and Mikoto. Where are we going? Asked Fu as she and Naruto took off running through the snowy plain. To Yuzu, answered Naruto, who was looking forward. We could have gone with the Mizukage and her group then, stated Fu with a questioning look. Naruto shook his head at that. No, I don't want anyone else to know about this. Even me? Asked Fu with a small pout. Naruto chuckled at that. The reason that you're even coming with me shows that the answer to that is no. Fu smiled when he heard that. Naruto then stopped his running, making fun stop also. Why did we stop? Asked Fu with a raised eyebrow. We're far enough, replied Naruto as he wrapped his arm around Fu's waist, making said mint-haired girl look even more confused. Naruto's eternal Manjikyu Sharingan flared to life. You don't have Dark Naruto within you anymore, reminded Kurama. I still have my Sharingan powers though, replied Naruto before he and Fu both disappeared in a dark flash, making it seem as if they had never been there in the first place besides the footprints on the snow. This is just fucking great. Now we got nothing. Shikaku sighed as Ibiki continued to rant in anger. Calm down, Ibiki. Ibiki looked at him in anger before pointing at what remained of the insides of Hayashi's head. I don't know if you haven't realized this, Shikaku, but without Hayashi's brain, we'll never know what exactly happened. Shikaku shook his head at that. No, we did get something out of this. This just proves the fact that Naruto didn't kill Hayashi just for the hell of it. It means that there was more to this, just like we thought there was. And, said Ibiki with a raised eyebrow, something that no one could tell thanks to the fact that he wore a bandana on his head to hide his scars. How are we supposed to find out what exactly it was then? That's what I'm trying to figure out, muttered Shikaku before Yugao walked in. How's the Yamanaka? Asked Ibiki. Just some minor mental stress, answered Yugao with a sigh of her own. It seems that whatever caused this to happen to Hayashi's brain was not meant to affect whoever was trying to access Hayashi's brain for some reason. It still turned Hayashi's brain to go through, commented Anko with a chuckle as she observed Hayashi's head. It seems that Inoichi really was the best when it came to looking through a dead person's brain, thought Shikaku as he tried to think of what to do next. Accessing the memories of a dead person is a lot more difficult than accessing that of a live one. My guess is that we are trying to figure out who's responsible for this, said Ibiki as he held one of his hands to his chin. If we can find him or her, we can interrogate him or her and find out what exactly is going on here. My thoughts exactly, responded Shikaku, but how do we start is the question. Anko narrowed her eyes slightly as she backed away slightly from the operating table. My first guess is Kabuto, said Anko as she shrugged. That made the other three individuals look at her. What makes you say that? Asked Yugao. Both Shikaku and Ibiki merely stared at the purple-haired woman in silence. Anko smirked at Yugao. Do you really have to ask? The bastard is as truthful as Orochimaru was. Who's to say that he's not teamed up with the Kyubigaki in this? That is true, muttered Ibiki with a thoughtful look. Truth of the matter was that he never approved of what Tsunade had decided to do with Kabuto, mainly agreeing to team up with him. He was unloyal as Orochimaru had been, if not more. I guess he's the one that we could start with, agreed Shikaku. He was Orochimaru's right-hand man, meaning that he should be an expert in any type of poisons. He's with Tsunade-sama at the Kage summit right now though, said Yugao. We'll tell her when she gets back, responded Ibiki. We need to make sure that Kabuto doesn't know that we'll be investigating him though. Something doesn't feel right about this though, thought Shikaku as he looked at Hayashi's body once more. Something in his gut told him that he was missing something crucial as well as the brain cells within his brain. Dark Naruto glanced down at his bandaged stomach in anger, not believing once again that he had lost to Naruto. Damn you Kyubi, thought Dark Naruto in pure hatred towards the Bijou. You're supposed to have been on my side, not my pathetic other self. Currently we find Dark Naruto sitting down in a bed within an old base that used to be used by Orochimaru in the Land of Iron. Apparently to Kabuto, it was the only one in the Land of Iron that Orochimaru had bothered to build. Said individual walked into the room with a glass of water in hand, handing it to Dark Naruto who gulped it down. So, began Kabuto after Dark Naruto had drank the water, what do you plan on doing now? What do you think, said Dark Naruto with a roll of his eyes. After I'm through healing, I'm going to go back and kill that whiskered son of a bitch. Kabuto raised an amused eyebrow at him. You have whiskers too, you know. They look good on me though, retorted Dark Naruto. Don't forget about your end of the deal, said Kabuto as he readjusted his glasses, pushing the whisker topic to the side. Right, thought Dark Naruto with an internal roll of his eyes. Just let me kill Naruto, and you can have his dead body to do with it whatever you want. That will do for now, thought Kabuto before shaking his head. Do you really think that going back there the way that you are right now is smart? Dark Naruto scowled. He got lucky. Next time though, it won't go the same way. Kabuto raised an eyebrow at him. Really? Because with the Kyuubi, it seems that Naruto-kun holds an advantage over you. Dark Naruto involuntarily shudders slightly at hearing Kabuto say, Naruto-kun, before answering, like I've told you, it was just luck. Kabuto chuckled. But I'm offering you something that will surely make you win without any doubt, no luck involved. Dark Naruto paused at that before looking Kabuto straight in the eyes. And what exactly do you have in mind? Kabuto chuckled again. I'm sure that you have heard of the curse mark, correct? Seeing where Kabuto was going with this, Dark Naruto grinned. Obito looked up at the dark sky while laying on his back on the rooftop of one of the many Uchiha hideouts throughout the elemental nations. It seems that you are being too relaxed right now. Obito humphed at hearing that, not turning to look who said it, already knowing that it was Black Zetsu. And what are you doing here? Asked Obito. Everyone is getting ready for the war, answered Black Zetsu as he also looked up at the sky. He had detached himself from White Zetsu again, who had preferred to go and watch how Mito would do in aim. So there is not really anything interesting going on right now. Well, besides what Naruto is doing right now, of course. And what is he doing? Asked Obito. I have no idea. Obito chuckled at that before focusing on the stars in the sky again. This story is almost over, isn't it? He said softly. There are still some things that need to be accomplished before that happens, replied Black Zetsu. We'll just see how things turn out then, said Obito. We'll see, alright, thought Black Zetsu as he joined Obito in looking at the star-filled night sky. Fu could only look at the ruined land before in complete shock, not believing what she was seeing. Just what is this? She thought to herself. It's what happened to Yuzu, explained Chome as he too observed everything through Fu. It was completely destroyed by Iwa, Kumo, and Kiri. Even a clan such as the Uzumaki couldn't handle that combined force. Although from what I have heard, it seems that they did manage to wipe out about a third of the combined forces, if not more. Then why is Naruto teamed up with them then? Asked Fu as she glanced at the calm-looking Naruto as they walked through the ruined land. I guess that's for him to know, answered Chome. And maybe Kyuubi, he added to himself. After a few more minutes of just walking through the ruined land of Yuzu, curiosity got the better of the mint-haired Jinchuriki. What exactly are you going to do here? Asked Fu as she looked at Naruto. Naruto for his part stopped walking, ignoring Fu's question for the moment. This caused Fu to stop as well and to turn to look at him with a curious look. But Naruto simply stared ahead in front of him. Turning to look at what he was looking at, Fu saw one of the few remaining standing buildings in the entire island, and that's barely standing. It appeared to have once been some sort of big mansion when it had been in its full glory. This place, thought Fu in curiosity. Chome stayed silent. Naruto then proceeded to calmly walk through the building, Fu following as a result. It's a beautiful night, thought Fu as she looked up at the sky to see the many present stars. What a beautiful sight. Chome could only sigh. His Jinchuriki just seemed to be too pure and too innocent at times to be doing what she was currently doing at the moment. Maybe it's just because she's in love with Naruto, thought Chome. Naruto looked around the destroyed building after he and Fu walked through what had once been a doorway. So what now? Asked Fu as she looked at Naruto expectantly. This, answered Naruto as he bit his right thumb, just enough to draw out blood as he proceeded to commence a series of hand seals. Recognizing the hand seals made Fun even more confused. What's a summoning going to do? She wondered to herself. Chome just stayed silent once again, simply observing. Naruto brought his hands down and softly muttered, Kuchios, Shinigami. Fu shuddered slightly as she felt a dark and oppressing aura envelop the area, similar to the one that she had felt in the Land of Iron earlier that day. Uzumaki, this is a surprise. Naruto simply looked at the summoned Shinigami calmly. I have many things to ask you, Shinigami. The Shinigami chuckled. What makes you think that I'll answer them? Add to the fact that you have violated our agreement in summoning me without any reason or sacrifices. I already gave you the reason, retorted Naruto with narrowed eyes before his eyes changed into his Rinnegan, also flaring his chakra in anger at the Shinigami. And I'm through with this game that you and everyone else have been playing. I want my answers, now. This takes me back, thought the Shinigami with a chuckle as he looked at Naruto. It's exactly how the kid before him reacted. Fu for her part could only look at Naruto and the supposed Shinigami in confusion. Just how could Naruto do this? And what was all of this about? You've left some things out, haven't you, Kyubi? Thought Chomei in slight anger. The Shinigami was silent for a few moments before responding. Alright, Uzumaki Naruto. If you want your answers, then I'll give them to you. Naruto simply crossed his arms and tilted his head, showing the Shinigami that he should continue. The Shinigami for his part brought his cane down on the ground. In the next moment, both Naruto and Fu looked around, only to find themselves in a different place and not the collapsing mansion that they had just been a few moments before. Where are we? Thought Naruto as he looked around, an act that was shared by Fu. I don't know, muttered Kurama as he paid rapid attention to everything that was currently happening. Chomei for his part merely kept silent, just taking everything in and glad that his container was here, meaning that he would get to know something new. In case you are wondering, this is before the shinobi era, began the Shinigami, way before the time of the Rikudo Sennin as well. Naruto looked around again, seeing what appeared to be a more advanced civilization in terms of technology. Some buildings were huge, bigger than those that he had seen in AIM. He also did many other different things that he did not recognize either. This is before the usage of chakra came about, isn't it? Asked Naruto, but he already knew the answer to that question. The Shinigami simply chuckled in response. Yes, it is. To understand the answers that you seek, I'm going to have to tell you everything that has happened to have caused what we know as reality today. The Shinigami brought his free hand forward, pointing all around the area. This is what happened to your race in the past and just how exactly the man you know as the Rikudo Sennin came about to exist in the world. Naruto could only look down at the life below him, not entirely believing what he was seeing. Not that anyone could blame him. According to the Shinigami, this is the way that humanity was at one point. More technically advanced than they were now but also weaker in terms of natural strength. That's what all these machines were for, to make up for their weaknesses and in some instances even surpass their natural limitations at this point. As he had noticed before when he had first appeared here, the buildings were simply huge, plain and simple. But they also looked different from the ones that currently existed in the elemental nations. They looked better. And more futuristic for lack of a better term. They were all white, with what appeared to be made completely of glass in some cases. Those were the two most common types of structures. Although there seemed to be some exceptions, Naruto didn't dwell on it. Transportation was way different as well. Naruto could make out what appeared to be trains except that they looked different than the few that he had seen before. They were white as well and ran on tracks that appeared to be supported on bridges, running entirely through the city. Or at least that's what Naruto thought this place was, a city. Another transportation, vehicle was some sort of flying and or hovering device. That was how Naruto could describe it as. This type of transportation seemed to be for both short traveling distances and long travel as well, the flying mode being for the long travel deduced by Naruto. But this transportation vehicle seemed to only be able to carry 4 passengers at a time and was owned by individuals, not for the public like the trains that he had seen before. The streets were different too. They were clean with multiple lampposts running all scattered throughout all the streets. The streets looked different from the elemental nations as well. They were made out of what Naruto recognized as concrete. What an ingenious way to use concrete, realized Naruto. In the elemental nations, concrete was only used for building buildings, and that was it. With the occasional bridge here and there. But something told him that this was due to the fact that nowhere in the elemental nations did there exist that vehicle that he had seen earlier. And the people, they were strange as well. They all wore a completely white outfit. It is composed of a long-sleeved white shirt with multiple buttons running down the middle. It looked like some sort of lab coat except without the coat part, meaning that it wasn't open down the middle. Well, that was what it looked like to Naruto at least. The people also wore plain white pants with ordinary white shoes. And that was it. No decorations, no other colors, no anything else. Even some of the women that Naruto saw, they all wore the exact same thing. Just what kind of place is this, thought Naruto as he looked at everything from up above where he was currently flying. Well, more like hovering really. And this was due in thanks to the Shinigami who stood behind him. Whoa, exclaimed Fu as she gazed down below, not believing her eyes as well. This is incredible. She muttered in fascination. But Naruto wasn't paying her too much thought at the moment. Instead, he turned around to focus on the Shinigami. What is all of this? Asked Naruto with narrowed eyes. Do you really expect for me to believe that humanity was once like this? The Shinigami could only chuckle in response. I suppose that I can understand your skepticism on this subject, but this is the truth. Before the world became the place you know as the elemental nations, this is how things were in the past. Frowning in response, Naruto once again looked down below him to see people going about their businesses. But this is just the beginning of things, continued the Shinigami as he pointed to everything below him. This is all the end result of humanity's ever-growing need to surpass everything that they know and everything that they can do. I'm sure that you must understand this, young Uzumaki. Even in the present today, humanity is just like that. Even you. Naruto didn't respond to that, knowing very well that it was true. It would have been both stupid and pointless if he would have done so. Not only that, but he would be a hypocrite if he tried to deny it as well. And he would never stoop so low as to do that. Yes, he had killed some innocent along the way of achieving what he wanted, but Naruto had already come to terms with that. Did it make him a bastard? Yes. An imbecile? Yes. An asshole? Absolutely. But he didn't try to deny it. The fact of the matter is that humans have the tendency to ask questions, continued the Shinigami once again, and will not stop until they have found one that they are satisfied with. This is something else that you should also be familiar with, correct? Naruto didn't respond again, not that he needed to. The Shinigami already knew the answer to that question. As you can see, this is the result of humanity asking questions, stated the Shinigami as he pointed to all around them once more. Well, in a way at least. But the point still stands that humans are very curious creatures, especially during this time period. They are even considering going into space right about this time. Naruto's eyes widened at that. Space, was that possible? Well, considering all the technology that he had seen so far, he figured that for them it could be possible. And something told him that he hadn't seen anything yet. That can't be possible. Muttered Fu, having been listening to the conversation that was currently taking place. The Shinigami spared her a glance. But it can. Well, to them perhaps. Of course, before they could actually go through with it, it was too late. The Shinigami chuckled slightly at that as if it was a private joke that he knew only of, which was probably true right now. Naruto's eyes narrowed at that. That was the most important part here. If humanity was so advanced as it was, how did things end up the way that they currently are? What happened to all the technology? What happened to humanity? And how did the Rikudo Sennin come into the picture in all of this? Kurama merely stayed silent, simply paying rapid attention. These were things that he didn't know. Just how exactly his creator came into existence. It was something that had always baffled him. Of course, he had asked the Sennin once before his immediate death. The Sennin had simply laughed lightly before answering, "One day you'll know, Kurama. Just give it time and be patient. Things will all become clear." Was this what he had been referring to, wondered Kurama before shaking his head. It didn't matter right now. All that mattered was listening to what the Shinigami had to say. Kurama's thoughts were currently being mirrored by Chome. The next moment, Naruto and Fu found themselves in an entirely different location from the one that they had been a second before. Looking around, Naruto deduced that they were in an office within one of the buildings that existed in this time. But that was an obvious observation. There was a medium-sized leather sofa in one of the corners, one large dark wood desk on the other side of where the door stood, a shelf filled with books on the opposite side of the sofa, and 2 leather chairs in front of the desk with another one on the other side. There was also a carpet right in the middle of the floor. The office was most likely in one of the buildings that Naruto had seen that had not been white or made completely out of glass considering how dark it was currently within the room. Fu took several steps forward, looking around the office. Naruto for his part walked up to the desk to see several documents scattered about the surface of the desk with one pen right in the middle of the mess. There was also one picture of a man, a woman, and 2 kids. Most likely the owner and his family, thought Naruto, giving the picture a glance before picking up one of the documents, trying to see just what exactly made this place special enough to have made the Shinigami bring them here. A few moments later, Naruto put the paper down back on the desk, a frustrated look on his face. And you might be wondering as to why he was frustrated. And the answer to that is that he couldn't read whatever language it was at that time. Hell, it resembled nothing to the one that the elemental nations used. Unless it was some sort of secret code or something. "Alright, I give. Why have you exactly brought us here?" asked Naruto, facing the calm-looking Shinigami. Fu brought her attention to the Shinigami as well, interested in the answer. The Shinigami for his part merely pointed to the door of the office. Turning his gaze towards it, Naruto wasn't surprised as the door opened, 2 men walking through it. No, what surprised him was what they were wearing. It looked nothing like the attire that everyone else was wearing outside. The 2 men were both wearing pure black business suits with white dress shirts being the other different color. Everything else was black. I can worry about their attire later, thought Naruto as one of the men sat down on the chair on the opposite side of the desk of the other 2. Naruto recognized him as the man in the picture frame. "Have they found it?" asked the apparent boss between the 2 well-built men. The other man for his part brought out a small device from his pocket, pressing some sort of buttons on it. "Yes, they have," answered the man with the small device in his hands. Although according to Dr. Newman's report, it seems that it is tightly locked by something present inside the cave. He's not entirely sure what it is, but his guess is that it has something to do with the markings that we have found. The man sitting on the chair laughed lightly at hearing that. "The good doctor seems to dwell on those markings too much for my tastes," he commented with a small amused grin. "If I may, sir," began the man, making his boss wave one of his hands as if to say, "Go on." The man collected his thoughts for a moment before speaking. "Everything that we have uncovered so far is because of those markings, or symbols, or whatever it is that they are, just like Dr. Newman predicted. I don't think that it could be far-fetched if dash." "That thought is simply idiotic," interrupted the other man with a small sneer. "To think that simple markings can actually be more than just that. And to have some sort of power, that is simply idiotic," he finished with another sneer. "But what if they aren't just markings?" questioned the other man. "What if they're more than just that? Dr. Newman seems to believe that they're an ancient language, and that is how he has been able to dash." "That's enough, June," interrupted the now identified June's boss. "For something like that to be possible is impossible. Nothing in our science has proven that what Dr. Newman thinks is possible. The man is just simply delusional." But June didn't seem to be entirely convinced of that. Seeing this, June's boss stood up. You are my most trusted subordinate, June, as well as my best friend. Just have faith in me. The power source that we have detected from within that cave can solve all of our problems. June's boss's face gained an excited look from just thinking of what they could do with the discovery that they had unearthed. Just think of the possibilities. An unlimited power supply. All the things that we can solve from that. June sighed before nodding. I understand, Ken. I just hope that you are right about this. The now identified Ken walked around his desk towards June, placing one of his hands on June's shoulder. And I am. In just a few hours, I'll be known as the man that has saved our collapsing society. And with you as my second in command, the whole world will be ours. June simply offered Ken a small smile before the two men both walked out of the office. Naruto could only stare at the doorway as Ken shut the door after him. What just happened? Asked Fu with a confused look on her face. What were they talking about? And how could we understand them? Thought Naruto before shaking the question away. It was clearly the Shinigami's doing, as well as the fact that neither Ken or June had seen him or Fu. That was just a bit of background information of what is about to commence once they find what is hidden in that cave, replied the Shinigami with humor obviously present in his voice. Naruto looked straight at the Shinigami. I thought that I had made it clear that I was through with playing games. I want answers, not more questions, he said with narrowed eyes. And you are receiving them, answered the Shinigami calmly. You just need to have some patience, Uzumaki, as well as think things through right now. Naruto sighed but didn't say anything else. Truth of the matter was that his patience on this subject had run out a long time ago, but he could hold on for a little while. Seeing this, the Shinigami continued, I'm sure that you have seen how technologically advanced humanity is at this time. But that came with a cost. It wasn't before long before their supplies of what made all of this technology possible started to run out. That is how organizations like this one came about. The Shinigami took a pause before continuing. The government simply tasked them to find a new power source that works just as good as the ones that they currently have, or perhaps even better. Not only that, but one that wouldn't run out as quickly, one that could be almost limitless if possible. The Shinigami could only chuckle. One of the hardest things to do. Almost everyone was giving up by this point and thought that they would simply lose their current way of life. That is until about a month ago when a discovery was made. Naruto looked around as they left the office and were now standing in front of what appeared to be a massive gate. But somehow the gate appeared to be familiar to Naruto for some reason. Not only that, but he recognized the marking that both Ken and June had been talking about. They were the same symbols that the elemental nations used as their language. Fu also noticed this particular fact in slight wonder. I don't like where this is going, thought Kurama with narrowed eyes. Just like Naruto, the gate seemed all too familiar to him for some reason. Not only that, but Kurama could sense extreme hostility from deeper within Naruto's subconscious. The Jubi, thought Kurama. Chomei for his part was also sharing Kurama's thoughts. The gate just seemed familiar to him. Not only that, but Chomei found that he felt a strong hatred towards the structure for some reason. Why was that? Naruto looked at his surroundings, trying to see where the gate actually stood. It appeared to be within some sort of giant cave. Not only that, but strange-looking machines were all hooked up to the massive gate, multiple men working on said machines. They must be trying to open it, thought Naruto before focusing on the gate itself as well as the familiar markings. He narrowed his eyes, recognizing exactly what some of the markings were. This is some sort of fuinjutsu, thought Naruto. And a strong one at that. As you can see, they have already been trying to open it for a while now, stated the Shinigami with another chuckle. Who knows how many men had tried before giving up before one man stood up to the challenge and had actually gotten the closest out of the rest. Looking towards where the Shinigami was pointing at, Naruto saw a middle-aged man in a lab coat with dark brown pants and dark brown shoes. He wore glasses and had dark brown hair. He was currently in the process of running from a man that was working on one of the machines to the next. Something tells me that this is Dr. Newman, thought Naruto as he looked at the man. Naruto, look, said Fu, pointing towards the top of the gate. Looking up as well, Naruto saw what had caught Fu's attention and now his as well. What had caught Fu's attention was basically a warning. It read, "Do not attempt to open this gate, for whoever does will bring about great destruction to the world and ultimately its end. What lies behind this gate is forever to be locked away. This is your only warning." After having read the warning, everything became clear to Naruto. Just what exactly had happened to this civilization, to humanity, that made it become what it was today? Well, at least the beginning cause. "I see you understand," said the Shinigami as things began to change around them once again. Looking around, Naruto saw that they were still inside of the cave, but the cave had changed. Well, more like the occupants. Naruto saw what appeared to be heavily gray armored individuals holding a strange-looking weapon to be present all throughout the cave and in front of the gate. Naruto also spotted both Ken and June with Dr. Newman standing in front of them, two of the heavily armored individuals standing behind both Ken and June. "It is time," stated Ken as he looked at Dr. Newman with a cold look. "The higher-ups are getting impatient, and I'll be damned if I get blamed for the delay of this just because of your cowardliness, Dr. Newman." Dr. Newman shook his head at that while pointing towards the massive gate that stood behind him. "I'm no coward, Mr. Ken. I'm just a realist. All the signs here tell me that opening this thing will not solve any of our problems but doom all of us." Dr. Newman then brought forward a stack of paper that he currently held. "From what I have been able to decipher from these symbols, it is most likely that dash." "I've had enough with this bullshit," interrupted Ken, smacking the stack of papers out of Dr. Newman's hand, sending them flying all over the place. "You're mistaken if you believe that I'll buy into your crazy belief. That gate will be opened, and I will save our collapsing race. Now, open that gate. Or else," Ken shrugged as the two armed individuals behind him brought their weapons forward, pointing them at Dr. Newman, "or else my men will simply kill you here, and I'll just find someone else to do it." Dr. Newman simply readjusted his glasses before taking out one of the same devices that June had taken out back at the office from within one of his pockets of his lab coat, a calm look on his face. Naruto found all of this to be intriguing. A few moments later, Dr. Newman looked up from his device before walking up towards the gate, his device glowing as well as the seals around the gate. "How?" thought Naruto, shocked. A few moments later, the massive gate was wide open. Ken motioned for some of his men to go inside to investigate. A group of 5 calmly walked forward, Dr. Newman stepping back. Ken could only look as his men walked into the massive gate, an eager look on his face. This was everything that he had worked for. And now it was right in front of him. His dream was almost complete. For the entire world to know his name and to be known as the man who saved the world from its problems. He was broken out of his thoughts as screams could be heard from within the gate, belonging to those that had just walked inside. Before he could ponder this, the ground beneath him started to shake. "What is this?" he screamed. He looked towards the gate where what appeared to be massive tails shooting out, grabbing multiple of his men along the way. "Newman!" screamed Ken, trying to find said doctor as everyone in the cave tried to escape. But he couldn't find a single trace of the doctor. Most likely meaning that he had already left, making Ken growl in anger. "Ken!" screamed June as he appeared on his side. "We need to get out of here." Ken growled at him. "I'm not leaving. This is my dream. And I will not see it die like this." Before June could respond, one of the tails was behind Ken the next moment. Seeing this, June pushed Ken out of the way at the last moment, the tail grabbing him as a result. Ken could only watch with wide eyes as June was pulled towards inside the gate, not quite believing what he saw. "No!" screamed Ken as the cave started to collapse all around him. But he didn't move an inch. The next moment, another tail was in front of him, grabbing him the same way as it had with June and many other people and dragging him towards the inside of the gate. Throughout all of this, Ken didn't even scream. The earth itself began to shake even more violently as lava began to spew out from under the ground, the cave finally collapsing completely. Naruto looked around again as he noticed that he was once again in the air. But instead of seeing the futuristic world that he had seen the first time, he now only saw pure destruction. It was a catastrophe. Many erupting volcanoes were present, causing even more destruction. Seas of lava were everywhere. It looked like the earth itself was trying to destroy itself. "This is horrible," muttered Fu, watching all of this with wide eyes. "I'm sure that you must know just what exactly was sealed inside that cave," stated the Shinigami from behind both Naruto and Fu. "The Jubi," muttered Naruto, but both Fu and the Shinigami heard him. "The Jubi," thought Fu. Chomei remained silent. "Correct," said the Shinigami with a small chuckle. "But how?" asked Naruto, looking back at the Shinigami with narrowed eyes. "Just how exactly did the Jubi end up sealed into that cave in the first place? And that Dr. Newman, just how was he able to disable the seals that were present in that gate to keep it close?" Hummed the Shinigami. "How the Jubi was sealed into that cave is simple. Now as to how Newman managed to do what he did is a bit more complicated." "We have all the time," retorted Naruto, looking straight at the Shinigami. Fu for her part also looked at the Shinigami with a questioning look. Seeing this, the Shinigami continued, "The Jubi was once not the being that you know it as today. It actually was a lot different." "Different?" repeated Naruto with a raised eyebrow. "Different how?" "For once it actually had a thought process," answered the Shinigami with humor laced in his tone. "Just like when it learned to think once again once the Sennin sealed it within himself." "The attitude was the same though, I'll tell you that." "Don't beat around the bush," interrupted Naruto. "Just what exactly was the Jubi before it became what it is today?" The Shinigami shrugged slightly. "It was one of us." Naruto paused when he heard that. He already knew who exactly the Shinigami was referring to when he said US. But for the Jubi to have once been a god, something happened to make the Jubi become what it is today, didn't it? Stated Naruto as he looked at the Shinigami. "Something tells me that it didn't want to play along with the rest of you." "You're almost correct," replied the Shinigami. "I, for one, didn't care what the Jubi did. The others though, they didn't share my thoughts." "And you're correct. There are certain rules that we must abide with." "Of course, I tend to bend them at most times," said the Shinigami with another chuckle. He then continued, "Of course, the others didn't quite share my sentiment. Seeing the Jubi breaking every single rule as well as even trespassing into the domain of the other gods, they became pissed, point and simple." "And what did they do?" "They took Jubi's rational thoughts and turned it into nothing more than a beast." "No, even lower than that. Even a beast has some rational thoughts even if they're just instincts after all." Naruto turned his attention back to the destruction below. "So after taking the Jubi's rationality, they sealed it away." Naruto then rolled his eyes. "Didn't it ever occur to them that this could happen?" The Shinigami shrugged. "I'm not like the others. I wasn't there when they decided to do this because I just didn't care. Besides," the Shinigami chuckled for what, like the 20th time, "because of their action, many people died which meant more souls for my collection. It was a win-win situation for me even though I didn't even lift a finger." Naruto chuckled slightly at that. "So then the rest is history I suppose. The Jubi roamed the earth until the Rikudo Sennin sealed it within himself." The Shinigami nodded. "Yes, all records of what this was actually about were all lost. Even with their technology, humanity couldn't even put one scratch on the Jubi. They were hopeless. Soon, life as it once was completely forgotten. Now it was just about surviving the Jubi. The fact that it was just a mindless beast helped a lot in that. If it could have thought. That would have been a true bitch, finished Naruto within his mind. As for your other question. The Shinigami paused for a while, before continuing. The other gods had a plan. And that was to allow for humans to unlock a power within themselves that they didn't even know existed. Chakra. Said Naruto in a whisper. The Shinigami nodded. Exactly. I don't know what exactly Kami was thinking when he did this, but apparently it was meant to happen one day. Of course, I wasn't interested in the slightest about what exactly his plan was or still is, so I didn't pay too much attention to it. But Newman, that simple scientist, apparently played an important role in human development in later years, because he could use chakra, finished Naruto, realization sinking in. Now it made sense as to how he had been able to disable the Fuinjutsu. Combined with the fact that he must have had been a genius, the fact that he could even understand some of the writing on the gate and figuring out how exactly to disable the seals proving that, it was of no surprise now. The Shinigami nodded again. Yes. I don't know as to why it was him out of all of the human race, but the fact still stands that he created two of the most shocking changes in human history. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that. Two, he repeated. One was accidentally releasing the Jubi. And even then it hadn't been his fault. Rather it had been that Ken person. But, what is the other one? The Shinigami chuckled before responding. That single Dr. Newman became to be the father of the one that carried Kami's plan into fruition. Well, in a way at least. Naruto's eyes widened at this. You can't possibly mean dash. Indeed it is correct. Turning his head to the side, a familiar individual became present. Naruto locked eyes with none other than the Rikudo Sennin. Dr. Newman was my father, stated Rikudo Sennin. So this is AIM, is it? Too rainy for my taste. Mito chuckled as she looked to her right to look at Fuka. I think the name should have told you about this village's climate. Fuka shrugged slightly as she, along with Mito and both Rashi and Han who were behind the two redheads, walked through one of the streets of the village of AIM. I've never been in AIM, she stated. It was too secretive for my tastes, and I never had any reason before to come here, I suppose. Replied Mito. They were all currently wearing the Akatsuki uniform save for Mito, for it wouldn't have fit well with the kimono that she was currently wearing. But no one paid them any mind. This place doesn't look like it's in turmoil, commented Rashi as he looked around. Han merely stayed silent, his head forward. Appearances, replied Mito as she glanced at him. No doubt that whoever has any power left in this village is currently fighting with each other. Not to mention how the shinobi must be like with pain gone. Rashi didn't respond. So, began Fuka as she looked at her fellow Uzumaki. How are we going to do this? Mito smirked lightly as she jumped upward towards a rooftop, the other three following her. As she landed, Mito looked up above towards the highest tower in the village. No doubt that was where everything would be happening at the moment. You leave that to me, stated Mito with a small grin. The other three behind her simply nodded. Let it be known for a fact that Uzumaki Mito was not a patient woman. For reasons that said female Uzumaki could not comprehend, her patience had never been too high. It was one of her few shortcomings, and although not much, some did exist. Of course, as she had grown older, Mito had learned to be more patient. And despite the fact that she actually looked like a woman in her early 20s, she knew for a fact that wasn't even really close to her real age. So you might consider the fact that she could control her impatience much more than she once did when she was once truly at this age that her body showed. But that was not the case. And that puzzled the female Uzumaki as she stood behind one of the many pillars within a big and dark room inside the largest tower in the village of AIM. Maybe it had something to do with the fact that her body had truly been reborn or recreated as it once had been at this age, meaning that her mental aspects of her being were also recreated as they had once been and not that of an old woman. And this was something that Mito had never given much thought to until now. And why was that? That would be thanks to the 10 middle-aged men that were presently sitting around one huge round table in the middle of the room. Several pillars stood, circling the whole room entirely. And that was where she was, standing behind one of the said pillars. No, it was more like she was leaning against the pillar. How long will it take for these idiots to be finished, thought Mito in a slight frustration, something that she had never truly felt ever since she had been revived other than when Madara had been involved. But she had every right to be frustrated at the once Uchiha clan leader. The bastard had said that he had only left out a few things to her, but in fact, it was much more. Thinking of this caused Mito to remember the day when Madara had come to her and had changed her life forever. Flashback, start. This can't be happening. Even though it was said in a whisper, the words could be heard loud and clear within the room as it was the only noise that had been made for quite a time. One old Uzumaki Mito could be seen standing by one of the windows of the living room within her house. Well, it technically wasn't her house, but since no other Uzumaki was present in the village of Konoha, by all rights it was simply hers now. Mito could only look up at the Hokage mountain, staring at the face of her deceased husband and founder of Konoha, Senju Hashirama. How can they do this? Wondered Mito to herself as she continued to gaze at the Shodai's face carved on the mountain. Hashirama. Her thoughts ceased as she suddenly turned around, a kunai in hand, ready to defend herself from the intruder that had just invaded her home. But instead, she found her hand that held the kunai stopped as well as coming face to face with an all-familiar face, shocking her to her core. Well, well, said the intruder, amusement clearly present in his tone. You may have grown old, but your skills haven't dulled in the slightest, Mito. Madara simply responded to Mito as she looked at the supposed dead Uchiha. The fact that he was alive didn't shock her at all. Well, it did surprise her in all honesty, but what shocked her was the fact that he looked exactly the same as the last time that she had seen him during his battle with Hashirama in the Valley of the End, meaning that he hadn't aged at all. She couldn't keep the shock out of her face as she noticed this in wonder. Either Madara didn't notice her shock, or he simply didn't care as he inspected Mito as well. It seems that you still wear those kimonos of yours, said Madara with a small chuckle. How the woman before him had ever been able to properly fight in one of those things was beyond Madara. Mito shook her head before narrowing her eyes at the Uchiha in front of her, said Uchiha still keeping a hold of Mito's arm. What is this? She questioned. Some sort of genjutsu? Madara chuckled at hearing that. No, this is not a genjutsu, Mito. It's reality. I really am here, standing before you with a proposition that I know that you will not refuse. Now that caused Mito's curiosity to increase but didn't show it. She had always been a very curious woman, and while that could be a good thing in some instances, this one could be a bad one. First, she needed more information. How and why Madara was here the way that he looked could be asked later. Proposition, she repeated with a raised eyebrow. And just what exactly do you propose? Madara lowered the hand that he had used to stop Mito's arm with the kunai in hand and took a step back, crossing his arms in front of his chest. Mito for her part simply lowered her own arm as well but didn't lower her guard in case Madara tried something. She knew for a fact that she wouldn't stand a chance against the Uchiha, especially in her condition and old age. But damn it, she would not go down without a fight. My proposition is simple, said Madara, looking Mito straight in the eyes. But first, I'm sure that you must already know as to what is going to happen in your home village. To this, Mito scowled furiously at Madara. What does that have to do with anything? She asked. Madara shook his head upon hearing that. A silly question, really. It has everything to do with all that is happening and going to happen. Hearing this made Mito even more curious as well as a bit confused. What did Madara mean, saying all that is going to happen? Seeing all of this present on Mito's face made Madara smirk, if slightly. I don't remember the last time that I've seen this look on your face, Mito. But then again, I can't blame you for wanting to know. Mito could only scowl again. Get to the point, will you? Madara for his part simply took steps forward towards the window that Mito had previously been standing by, making Mito step to the side. Arriving at the window, it was Madara's turn to gaze out towards the Hokage mountain, his arms still crossed. Konoha knows about the attack on Yuzu, began Madara. I know that, interrupted Mito with a frown. Where do you think that I just came from? From discussing this subject with the Sandaime, replied Madara with another light smirk on his face, not that Mito could see it. Mito nodded. Exactly. So if that's all you wanted to say, then dash. How stupid can you get, Mito? Interrupted Madara with a serious and disapproving tone. Mito's silence was her response. Or rather yet, you already know what I truly meant and just choose to not accept it, stated Madara, turning around to look at Mito again. I wonder why though, is it because of Hashirama? Leave him out of this, replied Mito, looking at the ground. He doesn't have anything to do with what is happening. Madara shook his head. Not in your case, he stated before pausing. He then continued, since you don't want to admit the truth, I think I'll just say it for you, Konoha has known about the attack way before now. And you know what they could have done. Even now, there is still time, but you know as well as I do that that is not going to happen. I'm sure Sandaime has already told you precisely what you were thinking before I got here, am I correct? Mito's lack of response was all the confirmation that Madara needed. But this is where my proposition comes into play, continued Madara, making Mito raise her head to look at him. What do you mean? Asked Mito, although she did suspect what Madara was truly going to propose. Join me, answered Madara. Join me, and you will have your revenge on this place. Mito took a step back. Join you? Do you actually expect for me to actually join in doing whatever it is that you're plotting? You're not exactly the most trustworthy person, Madara. Not only that, but I don't even know how you can even be standing here right now. I guess I have no choice, thought Madara, closing his eyes momentarily before opening them. What she saw made Mito gasp. Impossible. She muttered. Madara smirked, his Rinnegan activated. It's not, I assure you. But with this, you must know my true motive for having challenged Hashirama at the Valley of the End. You wanted his powers, answered Mito, understanding beginning to enter her mind. Madara shook his head slightly. I wanted more than just his powers. I also wanted his DNA. What? Exclaimed Mito in response. It was necessary, responded Madara. Without having done that, I would have never been able to get these eyes. And without these eyes, what I'm planning on doing would not be achievable. You, said Mito with a frown on her face. Enough about that, said Madara. What you need to know is the power that I have gained from possessing the Rinnegan. A power? Repeated Mito with a raised eyebrow. Madara nodded his head. Yes. And that is the power to see into future events. Mito could only stare at Madara with a blank look on her face before responding, do you really expect for me to believe that? I do, answered Madara. How else is it that you think that I know I'll do this? As well as to the young Uzumaki that is coming here to be the next Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi in a few days? Kushina, thought Mito, now alarmed. How dash? I've already told you, interrupted Madara, his Rinnegan looking as if it glowed for a second. It's all because of the power of the Rikudo Sennin. Mito was silent yet again. It wasn't like she wasn't aware of what was truly happening. It was just like Madara had said, she just didn't want to admit it to herself. Konoha, the same village that her husband created for a sort of utopia, wasn't going to lift a finger to help the same people that had helped it so many times in the past. Adding more fuel to the fire is the fact that they apparently had already known about this attack way before now if what Madara had just told her was true. But the question was, could she trust this man? I'm not asking for you to like me, began Madara, making Mito come out of her thoughts. That thought is simply laughable. Not after everything that I have done. But what I'm telling you is the truth. Of course, even I'm partly at fault as to what is going to happen. Now that brought Mito to a halt. What do you mean by that? She asked. Madara could only sigh. I'm the current Mizukage in Kiri for the moment. Mito could only stare at Madara in shock yet again, something that had never happened in a single day before this. I was the one who allowed for the spy that Konoha has in Kiri to pass the information back here. It was my way of offering some assistance as well as to see what this village would do in response, stated Madara. Mito shook her head. Forget about that. If you're the Mizukage, you can put an end to all of this. Madara could only stare at the aged redhead in some amusement. Don't be so foolish, Mito. Yes, I'm the Mizukage, but that's all I am. I don't have control of either Iwa or Kumo. Besides, what happens to Yuzu is none of my concern. I thought as much, replied Mito with narrowed eyes. You're just using this attack as a way to get me to join you in whatever it is that you're planning. Madara nodded. Yes. I'm not going to lie about that. That is precisely what I'm doing, but my hands are also tied in this. Things in Kiri aren't as stable as they are here. Everyone in the village feels that attacking and wiping out Yuzu is the best course of action. If I were to not follow through. Don't give me that nonsense, interrupted Mito with a scowl. I know how powerful you are, Madara. And now with the Rinnegan, you might have already surpassed Hashirama as well. Taking care of a few rebels would be nothing to you. As I told you, things aren't as simple as that, responded Madara. As of right now, I need to remain in the shadows. As far as the world is concerned, Uchiha Madara is dead. I would like to keep that thought alive for the time being. A rebellion could easily force me to come out of the shadows and to reveal myself. And the consequences would be too great for me to do that right now. You're just looking out for yourself then, said Mito. Madara shrugged at this. Perhaps I am. But is Konoha any better? At least I allowed for this place, the so-called allies, to know of the attack beforehand. And what did they do? Ignore it. What I did is far more than what this place has done, and you know it. Mito could stand there in silence, knowing that what Madara said is true. But that didn't mean that she liked it. You're still the same as ever, commented Mito with another frown. I could say the same to you, replied Madara. But are you willing to join me? Mito opened her mouth to respond before closing it, not knowing what to say now. Doubt had started to enter her mind. She already knew that everything Madara had just said was true. Add to the fact that Madara did try to help the Uzumaki clan in his own way. Madara wasn't the kind of person that would help out anyone other than an Uchiha. But with Azuna gone as well as his clan abandoning him, Mito doubted that there was anyone present in the Uchiha clan that he would help now. It's just him manipulating me, thought Mito. He said it himself. He doesn't care about Yuzu. But why should he? But Konoha. Began Mito, pausing as an image of Hashirama entered her mind before continuing, I can't give you an answer right now. Madara simply stared at her in silence for a few moments before nodding. I don't blame you. I would have been suspicious if you would have said yes instantly. Hashirama created this place after all. Madara then walked to the door. Mito could only stare at the Uchiha's back. Madara's hand reached the doorknob of the door and was about to turn it before stopping as Mito spoke. What exactly do you plan on doing? She asked him in a low tone. Madara didn't respond to her instantly, making Mito wonder if he was going to answer her at all. I can't tell you that just yet, answered Madara after a pause. He then turned his head back to glance at the redhead. I will tell you though that the next host of the Kyuubi is crucial to my plans. Kushina, thought Mito. But what does she have to do with this? She's just a child. Don't ask me, stated Madara before she could question him, turning his back on Mito again. Once you have agreed to join me, I will tell you everything that you need to know. What makes you so certain that I will? Asked Mito, but knew that that was a stupid question. Madara simply smirked. The fact that you are simply thinking about it tells me all that I need to know. With that, Madara opened the door and walked out, closing the door afterwards. Mito could only stare at the closed door in silence and once more turned to look at the Hokage mountain and the village below. What am I going to? She asked herself, but she pretty much knew the answer to that. Flashback, end. It would have been a few days after that Madara would return, and Mito would have given Madara her final answer and confirmation. Of course Mito had already begun to do her own preparations as well, and they seemed to have all worked out, thought Mito with a small chuckle before focusing once more on all the men that were sitting around the table. They were all the last remaining wealthiest men in AIM, but that wasn't saying much. Pain had controlled all militaristic aspects of the village, so the only ones left that could take any type of control of the village were the nobles. Rashi and Han should be done by now, thought Mito. In the next moment, an explosion could be heard somewhere within the building, making the men within the room all pause in their plans as to what to do exactly with the village. Right on time, thought Mito with a small chuckle before signaling to Fuka, who was on the other side of the room, also hiding behind one of the many pillars. None of the men present were shinobi, nor were there any shinobi present besides Mito and Fuka, so hiding wasn't that hard. Seeing Fuka ready, Mito appeared right on top of the circular table the next moment, Fuka right on her side and making all the nobles present stare at them both in surprise. Who the hell are you two? Asked one of them with wide eyes. Mito could only smirk lightly in response. Why, I'm glad you asked. Naruto simply stared at the Rikudo Sennin, looking straight into his Rinnegan eyes. Well, this is a surprise, commented the Shinigami as he glanced at the Sennin. I didn't expect for you to show up. I thought that you had told him everything that you wanted to. That was before this, responded the Rikudo Sennin, glancing at the god of death. I didn't think that you would actually tell him all that happened in the past after all. The Shinigami stayed silent, not bothering to respond. So it was true then, muttered Naruto, catching Sennin's attention. Fu for her part just merely watched everything happen in front of her. Yes, it was true, stated Sennin. Humanity unleashed the very being that nearly wiped them out. If it weren't for certain countermeasures, who knows what would have become of the human race? Would we be like we are today? Or just simply been wiped out by the Jubi? I take it that one of those countermeasures was you, said Naruto, making the Sennin look at him with no surprise. Yes, you're correct, responded Sennin. Of course I didn't complete my purpose. Well, not entirely at least. Peace, said Naruto in a whisper, having guessed what the Sennin was saying that he had failed at doing. The Sennin nodded. Yes, you're correct again. Teaching humanity how to harness and use that hidden power within them as well as to stop the Jubi, I succeeded in both of them. But not my third objective, and that was to actually bring peace to the human race as it once was in the past, except without all that technology this time. But with something better. But like you already know and stated, I failed. More like humanity failed you, thought Naruto but didn't say it out loud. You've always been bitter about that, muttered the Shinigami. But the Sennin didn't hear him or didn't bother to comment on it. Instead, he continued, like I have already told you, I was hoping for both of my sons to accomplish what I could not. But that failed as well, causing my own descendants to bring even more hatred to the world than that already existed. But now there is you. And like I have already told you, I'm not interested in peace, interrupted Naruto with a shake of his head. Everything that I have done to this point, what I'm planning on doing, it should show you that what I'm doing is the exact opposite of what you want. I already told you this, but peace can be brought about in many different ways, retorted Sennin. Not only that, but because of the circumstances that have been created, my remaining descendants have been united through you. Naruto remained silent at hearing that, knowing it to be true. And of those beings that did this was you, said the Sennin, looking at the Shinigami. The Shinigami chuckled. I was just interested. Who you should be thanking is Uchiha. Madara, said Naruto, remembering that said Uchiha had told Mito exactly what had happened with Yuzu, who in turn told Kurama, who in turn told him, making him be in the situation that he currently was. He only did what he did because you told him that his plan was doomed to fail, stated Sennin. Alright then, you got me, said the Shinigami, but didn't comment any further. What exactly is Madara's motive for doing what he did? Asked Naruto, making the Sennin turn to look at him again. I find it hard to believe that he did all that he has done for this just for revenge on the Uchiha clan for having abandoned him. In a way it's the same as that of the person that you knew as Tobi, answered Sennin in a soft tone. Madara lost everything during the era of the clan wars. All of his brothers were killed. And what did they die for? Nothing. Eventually he himself began to just act like everyone else. Just trying to survive and protect his clan. That is until he and Senju Hashirama established the village that you know today as Konoha. He did this because he actually wanted the same thing as Hashirama, peace. But then he saw the reality of things just like I have. That solution was not really a solution. It just delayed the cycle of hatred and wars. So he decided to take a different route than Hashirama had. Was it any better? No, but he was simply following what he thought was right. That is until he learned that you would stop him from doing this. What? Said Naruto with a surprised look. Since when would I dash? This is just one path of the many paths that you could have taken. Naruto, interrupted Sennin with a sigh. Is this any better than the one that you were meant to take? That answer would be a matter of perspective. I see, thought Naruto. That is Madara's motive, stated Sennin, containing his explanation. It is a noble one, although his actions indicate otherwise. I understand then, said Naruto. But his role is at an end, continued Sennin, walking forward until he was right in front of Naruto. His role was simply to prepare the path for you, to show it to you. But now it is up to you to walk upon it like you have and to put an end to all of this. That is your role. It really was half and half, thought Naruto with an internal chuckle, remembering what he had said to Madara when they had fought in the Land of Iron. Of course, you will encounter obstacles that will try to stop you, one greater than the rest. And I'm sure that you know who I'm talking about, said Sennin. Naruto simply nodded at that, remembering his freed counterpart. There is just one more thing to add in all of this, said Sennin, before pausing. He then raised his head, a smile gracing his lips. It really is good to see you two again, Kurama, Chome. Said Bijus both appeared behind their respective hosts. Chome, exclaimed Fu in surprise at seeing her Bijou outside of the seal and into the real world. Wait, was this the real world? Or just an illusion? The mint-haired Jinchuriki didn't know the answer to that question. Kurama chuckled as he looked at his creator. It sure has been a while, old man. Chome stayed quiet, simply looking at the Rikudo Sennin. Well, you two have surely grown, commented Sennin, the smile still on his face. I take it that the rest of your brothers are fine as well? Kurama simply nodded. That's good to hear, he said before focusing his attention back to Naruto. Now, there is just one more thing that you need to know before you continue down your path and to finish all of this. Naruto raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. Is he going to tell him that, thought the Shinigami, watching all of this. You already know who my father was, began Sennin. I'm not sure as to why he was chosen to be my father or as to why he was the first human to be able to effectively use chakra like he had. But that is how it is. I should tell you though that he died while trying to find a way to stop the Jubi. It was at that time that I acquired these eyes. The Sennin paused, then continued. It was during one of my visits to his gravesite. Flashback, start. One single child could be seen standing in front one of the many graves in one of the few remaining cemeteries in the world. With the outbreak of the Jubi, the destruction of cities came as well. All that people were concerned with was to get away from the beast and nothing more. They didn't have the time to bury the dead. It was only in stable locations that this could be possible. And locations where one was safe was rare as well. The child, who looked no more than 8 years old, could be seen crying as he stared at the tombstone in front of him. He had managed to sneak out of his house to come here. He wouldn't have much time before his mother would notice his absence, but he just wanted to be here right now by himself. Why did you have to die? He thought, in both sadness and anger. Sadness for his father having died and anger for his father having left him as a result of his death. If only you hadn't been so brave. Sad, are we children? The boy jumped in surprise at hearing the voice and turned around to see a man standing there in a white cloak that covered his entire body as well as his face. He knew it was a man because of the voice. But even then, he could tell that this man wasn't a regular man. Just from his voice alone, the boy could tell that the man in front of him held great power. Finally focusing on the question that the man had asked him, the boy simply nodded. Yes, I am. He answered meekly. The man in front of him simply nodded. And why is that? He asked in a soft tone. Because my father died, the boy answered, looking around for a moment to see if anyone else was around. He knew that talking to a complete stranger wasn't a smart thing to do, so he was ready to run away at the moment he saw something suspicious. I see, said the man. But you should know that death is a natural part of life. Everyone has to die someday. I know that, replied the boy in slight irritation. Just because he was a kid didn't mean that he didn't understand some things. But I just wanted for him to be with me longer than he was. For him to have seen me grow up. The man chuckled at hearing that. You're not an ordinary boy, are you? And you're not a regular old man, are you? Retorted the boy with a roll of his eyes. No, I suppose that I'm not, admitted the man with humor laced in his tone. The boy raised an eyebrow. So? What do you want? I'm sure that it wasn't just to know as to why I was crying in front of a grave. Smart, are you? Said the man before his tone changed. Yes, I'm here for something else. The boy took a step back as the air around the man began to change. And, said the boy, swallowing hard. Why did you come here? To offer you a gift, answered the man, raising one of his hands and pointing it at the boy. Well, offering is not really the right word. More like just simply giving it to you. The boy was confused as to what the man in front of him meant until he fell to his knees, holding his head in pain. What is this? Screamed the boy. What did you do to me? The man lowered his hand. Like I told you, I have given you a gift. I know that you will put it to good use. To correct the damage that your father accidentally caused. The boy couldn't question the man as to what he meant by that, the pain in his head getting stronger. Not only that, but his vision began to change as well as started to become blurry. Seeing the boy about to lose consciousness, the man simply turned around and began to walk away. Until we meet again, boy. That was the last thing that the boy heard before falling to the ground, unconscious. It would be hours until his mother found him. Flashback, end. The next morning when I woke up, these eyes were there with me now, said Sennin before chuckling. Imagine my surprise from going from having normal brown eyes to having gray ones with a ringed pattern on them. Naruto merely remained silent, letting the Rikudo Sennin continue with his story. The Sennin then shrugged slightly. There's not much to tell after that. My mother and I had to leave our home. Everyone there thought that I was cursed by the Jubi. Ridiculous, isn't it? But at that time, people would turn to things like that to explain things that they could not understand. We were constantly on the move afterwards. Really, if it wasn't for my mother, would have probably gone crazy. An image of Kushina enters Naruto's mind before he dismisses it. He could relate to the Sennin in that regard if only slightly. It was during that time that I began to see that my new eyes were more than just a different color and a weird sight. They helped me to do things that no human could, as well as enhanced my vision beyond imagination, said Sennin. He then continued, so I began to train with them. I didn't know it at the time, but I somehow already knew how to control them. All I had to do was master it, experiment, and improve. That's also the time when the Shinigami also appeared before me, making a contract with me as well as with anyone else that possessed these eyes. Said being didn't comment on this. The summoning jutsu, thought Naruto. It wasn't long before I became the person that I am today, continued Sennin. And the rest is history. I stopped the Jubi in the only way that it could, and that was to seal it. So I did. But instead of doing in the manner that it had once been sealed, I decided to seal it within myself. Now, history can't repeat itself. I corrected the mistake that my father committed. And you already know as to what happened afterwards. Naruto could only absorb everything that he had been told. Now everything made sense. He had all the pieces of the puzzle, and that was exactly what he wanted all along. The last thing that you need to know will probably be the most shocking to you, but you need to know it, said Sennin, catching Naruto's attention. And that is? Asked Naruto. The reason why you were chosen at all, responded Sennin. It's all very simple. It's the reason as to why you're the completion of what I started. Of what I couldn't complete. It's also one of the reasons why I named you my true successor as well. Naruto simply stood there, waiting for the Sennin to tell him what he wanted to tell him. Here it comes, thought the Shinigami with an internal chuckle. Kurama turned to look at Naruto's back, already having a clue as to what the Sennin wanted to say. Sennin was silent for a few moments before saying what changed Naruto's world forever. You are my reincarnation. Neji glanced out the window that he was currently leaning on, looking over to where the village was almost completely rebuilt. It was outstanding to believe that in just a few days, the entire village had almost been entirely rebuilt. Of course, the work had been going on throughout both the day and night. It just showed how desperate the higher-ups were to finish constructing the village. And Neji knew the reason for that. War. Naruto had already told Neji that war would be the end result. That would be where things would end once and for all. That's also where I'll get my revenge, thought Neji. Konoha had already been preparing itself as well on orders from Tsunade. And preparations were almost complete as well. But of course, it would all be hopeless in the end. Neji was confident that they would come out victorious at the end. The scenario that Naruto had built, mainly getting almost all of the major villages against Konoha, was truly a great strategy in Neji's mind. Konoha doesn't stand a chance, thought Neji with a small smirk on his face. The door opening behind him caused Neji to come out of his thoughts. Neji and Aizen. Turning around towards the door, Neji saw Hinata walking through the door and closing it behind her. She then proceeded to walk towards her desk that was next to where Neji was currently standing by the window. This was, after all, her office. Hinata's outfit had also changed from when she had defeated Hanabi and had become the new clan head of the Hyuga. Her new outfit consisted of a bluish-purplish mini-skirt with slight openings on both of the sides, black shinobi sandals with protective plates on the lower part of her legs, mainly her ankles, a white cape with light purple swirls all around her upper back, a fitted mesh suit on her upper body accompanied with a bra on top that matched the color of her mini-skirt, leaving her stomach area exposed, and tightly white-wrapped bandages around both of her wrists. Her hair was now done in a tight ponytail that still reached all the way down, almost to her now round visible bottom. Her Konoha headband was now located around her waist. Neji had already gotten used to the new Hinata. But not everybody else. They were still trying to wrap their heads around the fact that this was Hinata. The only thing that hadn't changed was the fact that she still called him Neji and Aizen. Not that he cared. Hinata sat down on the chair that had once belonged to her father, whom she had killed a couple of days earlier, and leaned back. "What are you doing up so late?" she asked Niji without turning to look at him. The fact that she also never stuttered was also something else that Niji had come to terms with. Now, if she wouldn't stutter if Naruto was around, that was something that Niji would have to wait and see. "I could ask you the same thing," retorted Niji, turning his attention back to the village that he had once been part of. "It's those old fossils of the council," responded Hinata with a scoff. "Wanting to know this and that. They're getting on my nerves. Why is it that we have them again?" "For advice, I think," answered Niji with a small chuckle. He knew that he was referring to a clan of elders of the Hyuga clan. Never would he have thought that he would be having this conversation with Hinata of all people. "Well, they're useless," said Hinata with a wave of her hand. "When do you think that Naruto-kun will return here?" Niji raised an eyebrow at the sudden change of topic, not that Hinata could see this. "Once the war starts. You should know this by now." That was true. Niji had filled Hinata in with everything that was going to happen and the role that she was going to play in all of it. I know," said Hinata with a sigh. "I just want to see him." "How the hell does he do it?" wondered Niji to himself. Before, no one else besides Hinata was interested in him. And now he has girls flocking out of every corner. Both Fu and Enko came to Niji's mind when he thought of this. And who knew if there were more? Niji simply sighed before making his way out of Hinata's new office. Kami, now that was something that he still hadn't gotten used to. "Can I ask you something, Niji and I-san?" said Hinata, making Niji stop in front of the door out of the office. "What is it?" asked Niji without turning to look at her. Hinata was silent for a few moments before asking the question that had been plaguing her mind for quite some time. "Why did you decide to join Naruto-kun?" Hinata knew why she was here, in the position that she was. And that was because she loved Naruto. But Niji, as far as she could see, there was no reason for him to be following Naruto. Not that she minded the fact that he was here. But she was still curious. "Because he promised me two things that I could not turn down," responded Niji without turning around. Hinata raised an eyebrow at this. "And those are?" "Truth and revenge." With that, Niji opened the door and walked out of the office, closing the door behind him. Hinata could stare at the spot where her cousin had stood a few moments earlier. "Is that your response?" Naruto could only sigh patiently, completely the opposite of what the Sennin had expected him to do. "At this point, anything is possible to me," stated Naruto with a small grin. "Every revelation that I have come to know of, why should I freak out now?" "Because you are me," replied Sennin. "Well, a part of me at least." "You mean your soul," guessed Naruto, making the Sennin nod. "Indeed. It's the reason why you adapted to my power so quickly as well as surviving. Others would have simply died or been incapacitated for months. But not you. Your body accepted it as if it were its own energy, which in a sense, it is. And you grew even more powerful as a result." "I've seen," said Naruto with a small chuckle. Kyubi already knew of this, thought Chomei, glancing at the calm-looking Bijou. It was as if he had expected it. Once the others find out. Fu for her part could only stare at Naruto in wonder, not truly expecting everything that she had just learned. Not that anyone could blame her really. "Is that all?" asked Naruto. The Sennin nodded. "It is. Everything that you wanted to know, you now know it. The question is, what will you do now?" "Exactly what I have been planning on doing," answered Naruto calmly. "All of this changes nothing. I was simply just tired of all the mystery games that had been playing around me." "Did you really expect that any of this would change me?" Hummed the Sennin. "No, I really didn't." "There you have it then," replied Naruto. "I don't know exactly what you expect for what you want to achieve through what I'm doing, but it doesn't matter. I'm still moving forward. Good answer, said Sennin with a small grin on his face. When the time comes, you will know what I mean. Good luck, Uzumaki Naruto. With that, the Rikudo Sennin disappeared, but not before sending both Kurama and Chomei a small wave with his free hand. There you have it then, said the Shinigami as everything around both Naruto and Fu began to change again. Looking around, both Jinchuriki found themselves within the almost collapsed mansion in Yuzu that they had been in before they had gone back into the past. Both Kurama and Chomei were no longer present behind them either. Naruto turned his back on the god of death. Why exactly did you offer the Rikudo Sennin that contract? What did you have to gain? The Shinigami chuckled. It's simple. I've already told you that I have never truly gotten involved in the affairs that the other gods do, as well as the fact that I bend the rules that are placed upon us all the time. That offer is a combination of the two. I now have a front row seat in all of the historic changes that are currently happening, as well as being responsible for some. The fact that I get a few extra souls as a reward is just a bonus. The Shinigami laughed for the first time as he started to disappear. Do you put a good ending to this story, Uzumaki? With that, the god of death disappeared completely. Fu stared at the spot where the Shinigami had been for a few moments before turning her attention to Naruto. What now? She asked him. Naruto turned his head to look up at the sky to see that a few stars were still present. Now, it is the beginning of the end. Anko walked through the many corridors of the now newly rebuilt prison in Konoha. She was just simply strolling through the corridor with many cells present, passing the time. She couldn't sleep. She was just too excited. Soon, everything would be over with. And she could be with Naruto for the rest of her life without any interruptions. Anko didn't know how the Gaki had done it, but he gave her what she had always wanted. And that was to be with someone that both understood her and wanted to be with her, as well as having known everything that she was. That was why she had agreed to follow him as well as help him with his goal after all. Even at the sacrifice of my friends, thought Anko as Kurenai, Hana, and Yugao came to her mind before shaking them away. They didn't matter. Not anymore. She had already made her choice, and she was going to see it through no matter what. Even if they did fail. But for now, she needed to keep suspicion away from Hinata. If Shikaku or Ibiki found out that Hinata was the one that had killed Hayashi, there was a chance that the girl would talk and rat out both her and Niji. And that would be an inconvenience that Naruto had already stated that he did not want to deal with. Not that I can blame him, thought Anko. In her opinion, they should just simply kill the Hyuga girl. She was too much of a pain in the ass in Anko's opinion. Of course, if they did kill Hinata, that would bring another set of problems, as Niji had already pointed out to her so many times before. So for the time being, that option was off the table. Anko suddenly stopped walking and discreetly took out a kunai from within her coat. You know, sneaking up on me is not really a good idea, said Anko with a feral grin on her face. She heard chuckling from behind her, causing her to turn around to look at whoever the owner was. And it was the last person that she wanted to see. It was none other than Kabuto. You, said Anko, annoyance clearly present in her voice. What are you doing here? Is Tsunade back already? Kabuto chuckled again and readjusted his glasses. So you don't know yet, do you? Which means that I beat her here. Well, that simplifies things, doesn't it? Anko was about to tell him to fuck off when her vision began to get blurry. She stumbled for a few moments before glaring at the smirking Kabuto. What did you do to me? Kabuto merely shrugged. Nothing. You just simply inhaled an odorless and tasteless knockout gas. One that not even Orochimaru-sama had a resistance for. Anko could only scowl at this information before she fell to her knees, dropping the kunai that she had held on the ground. She noticed that all of the prisoners present were already unconscious. They won't remember anything when they wake up, said Kabuto as he walked towards her, referring to the unconscious prisoners. It would be too much of a hassle if they did. Anko could glare at Kabuto before she too fell into the deep darkness that was unconsciousness.